premier speed chess event of the year has arrived.
Oh, no way! Oh my gosh!
Since 2016, dozens have entered the SEC ring.
NBL does the impossible.
But only 2 have ever reigned supreme. This year, 16 of the world's best players vie for $175,000 and a chance to battle in Paris for the championship's inaugural live final. Through 3 blistering time controls, only the strongest and the quickest will survive. Don't blink. Remember to breathe.
Oh, he's one of me! Oh!
Round 1 of the 2024 Speed Chess Championship begins right now.
Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's SCC Day. There's a new day of the week, specifically designated for matches involving Magnus Carlsen, because that is who is playing today. Levy, it feels like it's been a couple of minutes. That's because it's only been a couple of hours since we've seen each other last. And it's time for another day of SCC action. A doubleheader awaits. And Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen, the former world champion, have to practice that, takes on wonderful time, also known as Minh, GM Daniel Naroditsky, alongside the one and only International Master Gotham Chess, Levy Rosman, in the studio. Welcome to the show. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Great to be with you. Shout out to all the people who are here for, I suppose, the pre-show as we're about to get underway. Yesterday, we saw Hikaru defend his top seed or second seed. I don't know. It's kind of like 1A, 1B in this event with Magnus against Jose Martinez. And today we'll get to see Magnus in his first matchup against the Vietnamese sensation, Minh.
Indeed. And there is the bracket. It is already partially filled out. We had a doubleheader yesterday. In the first match, we had an incredibly close match, back and forth between Arjun Aragaisi and Jan Krzysztof Duda. That was a brawl. I mean, they were going back and forth, topsy-turvy. Hikaru Nakamura on the right side. He took care of business. It was a totally different type of match, Levy. We had the call on that match. Hats off to Jose. There were some moments of high class in that match. There were moments of great play. But ultimately, Hikaru put that check mark next to his name. He did what he had to do.
Yes, he did. He got the win across every single format. It looked a little bit dicey for maybe about 10 minutes out of a total of 3.5 hours. But Hikaru did what Hikaru does. And today's matchup is actually a little similar in the sense that you have a clear favorite, but you have an underdog in Tuan Minh who's more than capable, who on his best days is well over 3,000 in Blitz and Bullet, and who also is a big rival for you, right? I mean, how many games have you played against him?
Probably at this point, I mean, people can check our head-to-head on chess.com. I mean, Magnus and Minh have played a lot. And again, it's a similar score, like you said, between Magnus and Minh as between Hikaru and Jospin. But it's a new age of chess, which means a lot of these GMs are better known by their online handles. Minh is also known as Wonderful Time. I've played him just unholy amounts over the course of many, many evenings. Of course, mornings for him, because he's a normal civilized individual who wakes up in the morning. And he recently was in Charlotte playing a tournament here. We played a lot of OTB Blitz. So I'm very familiar with his player profile. Super dangerous player. When he was an IM Levy, he was widely considered to be basically the best IM who was not a GM. Now he's a Grandmaster. He's almost 2,600 FIDE, so he's got the bona fides. But to defeat Magnus Carlsen, you need to show a completely different level.
We also need to point out the fact that that graphic was 78 wins for Magnus and 33 for Minh. Like the one yesterday was 4.5, 5-1 in terms of Hikaru for Jose.
Mm-hmm.
So just based on that limited amount of statistics, I would find them quite interesting. And you know, he's got some pretty good chances here against Magnus. And now, Minh, you've played him a lot. He has a very set repertoire, or has he evolved from that? I know he's very, very particular with the openings that he likes to play. Is that still true?
It's mostly still true. I mean, what I found fascinating about Minh is that the opening repertoire he has in Blitz and in Title Tuesday is actually quite a bit different from what he plays in classical chess. I came over to the tournament hotel to watch some of the games, and I started realizing what Minh plays OTB very, very different. Like, he plays actual classical openings OTB. He might bring some of that heat and some of that preparation to the table today. Now, here are some of his bona fides. Good performance in the 2022 Bullet Chess Championship. But I think for Minh, most people kind of know him proverbially as a great Blitz player. He's always near 3,100 on chess.com. He's obviously had some OTB achievements as well. Let's not forget, he's a solid 2,600 GM, Levy, and somehow that is often overlooked in these discussions. I mean, these guys are very capable players. He won't be easy to beat. Magnus wouldn't find him easy to beat, even in a classical game.
No, I mean, absolutely not. And there's something to be said for the fact that when you build up a career of playing Blitz and Bullet online at the ultra elite level, like he definitely has, there is an incubated classical rating there that probably hasn't been realized yet, right? He could be 2650. He could be 2680 classical if you just gave him a whole calendar year of playing classical events. I understand the two are not fully comparable, but he's a very, very solid, very good player. And he's just happens to be an online specialist. It's almost like the poker days, right? Where you had the players that were online specialists and didn't play that many in-person tournaments. Mm-hmm. We've kind of developed a similar system in chess.
And he's also one of the undisputed nicest people in chess. I can confirm that. He is just a high-class individual, just super sweet. I think everybody who watches his stream becomes a fan. Minh really, I think, represents everything that we want to see in any kind of chess professional. He's so easy to root for. But he is a fierce competitor on the board, and he's going to have to show that today because his opponent is none other than MC. And I'm not talking Master of Ceremonies. I mean, he is the Master of Ceremonies in the chess world at large. He is not the reigning world champion. I have to catch myself there. He is, however, the reigning speed chess championship champion. He, of course, has had the #1 FIDE rating across all time controls for about 2 centuries now. And Levy, the fact that we have to keep catching ourselves on that anachronism and not say world champion, that speaks volumes about Magnus's continued domination over the chess world.
That #1 FIDE rating across all time controls is mildly cherry-picked. It's like when those TV programs about sports just tell you some random statistic, because on any given day, sometimes the Blitz rankings shift. But yes, he's clearly the best player across all formats, although Bullet sometimes is up for debate. And here is our past champions graphic of the Speed Chess Championship. And this is mostly just an image for you to show the timeline of whether Hikaru and Magnus have facial hair over the years.
Exactly. We were looking at this graphic yesterday. It's a pretty cool one. And just the extent of Magnus and Hikaru's dominance is hard to overemphasize when you have stats like those. I mean, one of the two of them has won every single year. That's actually pretty staggering if you think about it. But yesterday in the pre-show before Hikaru's match, I mentioned that one of these guys who faces Magnus or Hikaru, eventually they're going to be the ones to upset the narrative, right? And if you're Minh, you have to keep telling yourself, why not this year? Why not me? He's won his share of Title Tuesdays. He knows it's possible. And if Minh is on form, he almost never blunders. I think what makes him so difficult to play is the fact that he's incredibly sharp at small tactics. He sees almost every blunder that you make, and he is unbelievably solid and talented at positional thinking. I would say he's almost a mini Magnus. I think he's got a shot, at the very least, at making this close, Levy, I'll be honest.
I suppose the only thing better than being mini Magnus is being Magnus himself. So I'm not sure being mini Magnus will work when you are playing the man. Here is our smarter chess prediction. A 76-24 win probability for Magnus. I would argue, just like yesterday, it's probably closer to 80-85%. And you did just say that the margin of victory is there. It exists for Minh, but not according to this, Danya. I mean, in fact, it's going to be a blowout, especially in the Bullet, which I find quite shocking.
Yeah, and if you think about sort of the arc of the Jose Hikaru match, again, the games themselves were closer than the score. And this is what I think might be one of Minh's biggest enemies. I know he's been taking this match very seriously. He's been preparing for it on stream for, I think, a couple of weeks now. So he's got the right mentality and attitude. But the Carlsen aura, Levy, is not exactly the same as the Hikaru effect, but it's something similar. Even when you're in a good position, Even when you feel like you're doing okay in the match, it's just so easy to choke and lose the thread of the match. Magnus has had some ups and downs lately, right? He hasn't been infallible. He hasn't been impervious to the pressure. So if Minh can put him in a position where Magnus feels like, wait a second, I need to be my best self in order to win the first round of the SCC, that's sort of step one for Minh.
Certainly. I also was awake one evening many, many months ago when I think Magnus was pushing for the Blitz record on chess.com. And he was trying to do it against none other than Minh. So he was trying to farm his poor opponent today for some rating points. And I was watching that match, and of course that was 3-0, and that was much more casual and relaxed. But the Vietnamese superstar, he had some really nice positions. But unfortunately, down the stretch, he didn't handle his time the best way. He spent too much time in the beginning portion of the game to get a winning advantage, and then he would ultimately squander it. And that's the thing when you play guys like Magnus, Hikaru, like you have to beat them wire to wire. You also have to use your clock effectively, and you have to suppress all counterplay and be really sharp in the endgame. So you have to be a computer, basically.
Everything has to go right. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're likely to see in the opening, but we'll have time for that. A quick overview of the format, folks, because it has changed slightly this time around in the first round. The time controls are 5+1, 3+1, and 1+1 still, but the segment times are 75 minutes for the initial 5+1 section, then 50 minutes of 3+1, and 25 minutes of 1+1 bullet in big air quotes. Almost all of the top SEC competitors, they really make it a point to emphasize that 1+1 is maybe bullet in name only. And obviously, the scoring. The player with the maximum number of accumulated points at the end of the timer claims the match. And very importantly, if a game begins with time left on the counter, either the match counter or the segment counter, it does count toward the final score. But that's only really important if this match is close. Levy, final preparations here being made. Magnus getting set up. This is going to be a really interesting match. I think the chess itself is going to be of a very high quality.
I definitely agree. And curious to see how many Londons we're going to get today. Like you said, Minh, he has a very set repertoire. So he likes to play certain Sicilians with the black pieces. He likes to play certain Londons with the white pieces. I mean, listen, those are very good openings to play consistently over and over again because you're going to get a game. I'm curious to see what Magnus is gonna throw out there, and just in general, also how much preparation he would do for a match like this, or whether he shows up and he wings it. I don't know if you have any insights there, but that's an interesting point for me.
You got to look at the amount of laundry behind him and the status of his hair. But I think that Magnus, largely in the early rounds, he just sort of improvises. Now, for Minh, it's very important to realize Minh actually plays d4 and c4. As his main, he plays mainline d4 openings in classical chess, and he plays e4, e5 exclusively in over-the-board classical chess. Online in 3-0, he likes to play Sicilians with black and London system setups, Tory attack setups with white. This bishop c5 line is what he played in Charlotte. It's the Hikaru line against Nepo, people might remember in the candidates. This is a very fashionable way to meet the Ruy Lopez. Minh better be armed to the teeth here because Magnus must have expected this, Levy.
Now, let me ask you, did he get this from Hikaru, or he was doing this before Hikaru was doing it in the candidates?
He was doing it before, I think, but this exact F6 line, maybe it was sort of reaffirmed. His choice to play it was reaffirmed after Hikaru's game. Now, of course, we remember that Hikaru kind of messed up the move order in that Jan Nepomniachtchi game, even though he drew in the end. But black is actually fine if they follow the course of that game.
And we do get the legendary side cam, which is awesome. I love it. And we have a trade in the center, e5. All these moves are being absolutely rattled off. Minh has not lost any time. He's actually got more time than he started with. What move are we even on?
25. No, we're in move 18, and black has 5 minutes and 3 seconds. And this is exactly the start that you're looking for. But we didn't cover this exact position because I had the call with, I think, Anish Giri and maybe it was Robert for that Nakamura Nepo game. And we were exploring because the time control for the candidates is 8 hours. And 5 moves, right? So we have plenty of time to explore all of the what could have beens. And one of the what could have beens were lines involving black playing this f5 move. Look at Minh's pieces. The bishop on the long diagonal. The knight is ready to jump into the action. The queen can come into g5. This is what makes white's position pretty scary. And Magnus, the alarm bells start ringing. He's like, I need to get those ladies off the board pronto.
Wow, and Minh just instantly, he doesn't even hesitate. Now, there was an interesting point. You could take on d1, and if white had taken with a rook, you can take on f3. That's kind of the first thing that pops out to you, thinking, oh, I'm going to damage my opponent's structure. But maybe that's irrelevant in the short term, rather in the long term, because white has the bishop versus the knight, white has the passed pawn. So Minh, he doesn't even hesitate, which means he knows the ideas of the position as well as the moves. And here comes e6. And you're drawing the arrow there. Probably we're going to get c5, c4 on the board.
Yeah, it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet for black, but you can only make one move at a time. That is, if you're following the rules of chess. And rook a d8, I guess, would be a tempting move for most people, myself included. Just hit the queen and kick the can down the road. Make the big decisions only after you've played kind of the low-hanging fruit moves. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Magnus allows the move bishop takes f3 and recaptures with a pawn. I guess we're about to find out. No, he's going to walk into knight f4. But knight f4, Levy, might be a false friend here, because after queen e3, it's not entirely clear how the knight gets supported.
I know. At that point, are you playing g7 to g5? Is that what you're going for? Where's the knight going? Maybe to d3. It's another possibility.
Yeah, just get to a random airport, a random city, and then decide what you're doing. Make all the logistical arrangements later. Minh is the kind of guy who will go c5 or bishop e4. He likes these measured, relatively risk-free approaches. Now, black's position is not exactly safe. Look at this pawn on e6. That pawn is going to be on e7 faster than you can say e7 if black's queen ever moves out of that square.
Another possibility for Magnus is to play the move a4, right? And you gotta start wondering if those queenside pawns for black are strong or weak. Obviously, a4 comes with the responsibility of and by the way, there is the move bishop e4, which you said, a measured approach, disconnecting the queen, and a very nice move, I think. And that comes from soul reading the opponent.
I mean, people need to realize, people watching this need to realize just how many times I've played Minh and interacted with Minh. I feel like I can fill in the blanks of his thinking process. Okay, not entirely. I'm not going to be that hubristic. And if I could do that, then I wouldn't lose the copious amounts of games that I lose against him in Blitz. But he likes to put pieces on defended squares. And when he senses the initiative, he actually can get tactical. I mean, this is not a one-trick pony. This is not just a positional, guy who tries to steer everything into positional territory. Yeah, that's his preferred type of conversion. But rook d3 is not a move that Minh will shy away from, I think.
Yeah, you just started talking about the tactics and the position, but what exactly did Magnus miss here? I mean, you play queen e3. Of course, you see rook to d3. It attacks the queen. He's obviously looking at queen g5. Now, is the problem with that move that you can simply take the knight and the queen is protected? Is that the issue?
That's my question, too. So there's two options for black here. Let's dive in. Let's bring up our early morning analysis board or not. Minh plays c5 there. Let's still bring up the analysis board because apparently rook d3 was a pretty big advantage. And definitely queen g5 was where Magnus was hoping to go into. Yeah, Levy, you're right. Bishop takes f3. White has to trade. And in this version, the knight is the perfect blockader. I mean, you could go something like g6, king g7, king f6. Even a move like c5 should be good. Yeah.
But rook takes pawn is bad? Is that the point? Because white can play rook d1? Is that...
Precisely.
So Minh rejected this because he saw that, but he actually doesn't have to take the pawn. He could have just kept the blockade and he's just better.
Even this move, right, to discourage rook d1 entirely, and eventually he's going to round up this pawn. This pawn has no upward mobility. Oh, now knight g5. And now things get really tactical, but not by design, right? Now Minh has to play rook d3 out of necessity. The queen can move back to c1, and this is what Magnus does. He complicates the game, and just like that, black's advantage has entirely evaporated.
This is not really a case, I think, of Minh. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's almost like you believe the opponent, right? There is a little bit of that. Like If Minh was playing a match against maybe somebody he was stronger than, he would calculate rook d3 and then he would kind of call the bluff. But somehow against the stronger players, you believe them. And you believe that the queen can go to g5. And then you say, oh, okay, I'm just going to push my pawns instead. And now that gets a double question mark.
Oh, and Magnus is going to have f3 at the end. And he's going to be simply an exchange up. This is how quickly things can go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Against the world elite. And rook f7, you have 7, cbf3 levy. Nasty.
Dare I say, this is already a very bad sign because it fell apart for Minh about 3 moves in a row after 20 moves of memorization, right? So he had the whole opening worked out from the beginning and then left, to his own devices. He had a chance to take an advantage. He missed it, and now he is just significantly worse. So not a good sign, not a good first game, but he can shake it off. And also it's not over yet, but a nice move there from Magnus.
But Magnus, exchange, blah, 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 extra winning position, uptime, more pieces on the board, more rooks. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The conditions for Minh out of the gates were perfect. And in a bullet game, he would play rook d3. No question about it. It's the most natural move. It's crazy the way these psychological influences work, how much they warp your thinking without you realizing how much they're warping your thinking.
Right, because rook d3 was by far the most forcing move. The queen would have gone to g5, and you just realize, oh, I don't have to take. But in Blitz, you start overthinking things. Now, the pawn is on a2. He does have some counterplay. But I simply don't think that black has enough counterplay. The white king is quite safe. And just a move like rook a1, black will not be able to defend the pawn much longer.
Yeah, rook a1, because the tempting rook f1 actually ran into funny line. Queen takes f1, and suddenly white runs out of rooks. And black will promote the pawn. And of course, the fact that the knight controls f8 can help black deter any back rank threats. We see Minh down under 30 seconds. How does he defend this pawn? Now, technically, he's got 2 pawns for the exchange, but that's a moot point, Levy, right now.
Well, yeah, he's about to have 1 after b3, or maybe queen a3. Yeah, knight h4 threatens a checkmate. Maybe, actually, not really, because rook a2 defends checkmate. So, and we are going to get some head shakes now out of Minh, and there's one. Boom, right on the money. He's also a guy who likes to express his frustrations with himself. And down to 10 seconds, down on the board, looks like Magnus is cruising to taking a lead in the first game of the match.
That's a rook.
I was just going to...
And that's a free rook. Hello?
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
Magnus strikes first. No, definitely not good. Definitely not good. And now we're going to see... he plays d4, c4. He's not going for a London. Magnus playing one of these edgy Queen's Indians. Queen c2 is the critical move here, trying to play pawn to e4. This was trendy a few years ago, but people with black stopped playing it because it was a bit too risky. But Magnus does what he wants.
He does what he wants, and he makes it work. And d6, d6 is the non-theoretical move, and there's nothing horribly wrong with it. d5 was black's attempt in the old days of equalizing, and then people realized black does not equalize. But like you said, Magnus does what he wants. Those words are pretty profound. He basically can play any opening under the sun, and you have a guarantee that he's going to know all of the trendy ideas. He's going to know exactly where the pieces belong. He's going to know how to make the most out of even the most janky, inferior-looking openings. He's going to make everything work.
Exactly right. And a move like d5 here, now it kind of depends where black develops the dark squared bishop. So if you put the bishop on g7 like what Magnus is doing, then it's basically a King's Indian defense, except black played b6, bishop b7. Danya, you've played King's Indian your whole life. The bishop does not belong on b7 ever, right?
Yeah, when you play a traditional full-throated King's Indian, you almost never voluntarily fianchetto the other bishop. And there's a reason why. The problem isn't the fact that this bishop is bad. It is pretty bad, but you can retract it. Bishops do move. There we go. The problem is that now if white ever plays b4 and c5, it's going to cause a chain reaction on the queen side, because the more defenders, paradoxically, you put on a square, the more powerful the effect when the opposing side puts a pawn on that square, if that makes sense. But look, this is what I'm talking about, a4. This is an idea that you really have to know the King's Indian well to know. Knight takes a4, knight takes e4. This does come up. How does Magnus he just knows everything? This is the problem. He knows every idea.
Perfectly executed. And Minh had to be faster. Because it's not like White's position has a free pass to do whatever he wants. He did spend one full tempo on queen d1 to c2, which is not exactly what White wants. You would prefer maybe a knight on e1 to d3, or maybe a knight on d2, maybe a bishop on e3.
Or on c6.
Yeah.
For a knight on
yes,
c6.
Yes. If we could kangaroo into the position, we could just fly like a drone, like the Canadian team at the Olympics, to c6. Then that would be great. But unfortunately, we're not able to do that. There's also questions, Daniel, like, is the bishop on g2 correct? It almost feels like Minh sort of played that offhand. He just kind of played by hand, g3, bishop, g2. But is that really where the bishop belongs?
Well, the reason he plays the fianchetto against the King's Indian, against the traditional King's Indian over the board chess. Now, I just want to really quickly show for newer players who might be too shy to ask, what exactly happens if White took that pawn? So I can rewind a little bit here. A knight takes a4. It's not just, tit for tat. White is in huge trouble. Black plays knight takes e4. Suddenly the queen turns out to be ineffective at guarding the pawn. It's overloaded. And here's an important detail. If White tries the desperado sack with knight takes b6, so obviously takes, and Black has a clear plan in the center of pushing f5. If White plays knight takes b6, desperado, Black takes with a knight, and look at how everything falls into place, Levy. Bishop f5, and you can't even get a pittance for the rook. You lose an entire rook, not even the exchange. So that's out of the question. And the point is that White can never get the attack started on the queen side because b4 is always going to be met with en passant, and you're never going to be able to push c5. That's the positional component of the problem. Magnus, of course, his plan is clear, and perfect timing, f5 on the board.
There it is. Black is going to execute every single plan that he wants in the King's Indian structure, and White, who is supposed to start a queenside attack, isn't anywhere remotely close to starting a queenside attack, which means that in about 5 to 10 moves, Black will likely have a decisive advantage. And it really is like magic the way Magnus gets it done. Because I have tried to play that same system with the Black pieces, where you put the bishop on b7 and then you slowly wait and maneuver. And I get a losing position in about 15 moves. So this is really, really impressive stuff. And I really like watching how these high-level guys do it in Blitz, because it's inspiring, honestly. There's a lot to learn.
Yeah, and I've also been kind of guilty of trying to look at Magnus's games and trying to model my repertoire on his. And I'm like that guy who, picks up a new hobby. Like, I'm going to get good at tennis now, and I'm going to invest in Novak Djokovic's racket, and I'm going to get, Rafael Nadal's knee pads, and I'm going to look up Roger Federer's morning routine. And you can do all of that surface level stuff, but you ain't going to become, Andy Murray overnight. So the way that Magnus demonstrates command of these ideas, and the way that all seems to coalesce and work in his favor is pretty mesmerizing to watch. Now, he gives up the dark squared bishop. We talked about this type of idea yesterday. He just wins a pawn. There ain't nothing wrong with that last time I checked. Minh can recover it, though, Levy, with bishop c5 and knight e4.
He can. I kind of liked bishop to d4 a little bit more. I was trying to work out if just taking over the diagonal is good. And if Magnus had any weakness, I feel like it would be evaluating kingside attack, especially onto himself. And then we do see bishop d4. So I'm starting to look at ideas like f5, but they're just never in time. And yeah, Minh gives up the dark squared bishop. He's trying to win the pawn back. But Black has the targets, right? He's got b2, f4, c4. So many pawn targets here to work with.
Yeah, he's got pawn targets that he can attack even with the position as locked up as it is. If the position opens up, Levy, as you're pointing out, very important. The b2 pawn is a backward pawn. If the b file opens, an idea like rook b8 and b5 might be in the cards. Minh is a phenomenal endgame player. But like I said, Mini Magnus is not an insult. That's a tremendous compliment. But Magnus is the OG endgame master of this generation. He is, to my eyes, the greatest endgame player of all time, and it's not even close. I know that that's not necessarily the most common take, but having played 3-0 with Magnus, he's so controversial to call Magnus the best at anything. He is just a machine with the queens off the board.
And we see h4 there. That's just to get the pawn off of a light square. In a lot of these endgames, especially with the same colored bishops, you kind of try to find a balance between putting the pawns on the opposite color square of your bishop. Did he blunder? I thought king f5. Yeah, king f5, and you just can't protect the pawn.
But king g3, rook e3.
Yeah, he just totally. That configuration did not make any sense because he doesn't have bishop h3 now, and he's just losing.
This is what rook e8. I didn't understand why Magnus put the rook on a file where all the infiltration squares are under control, and I just assumed that the bishop was going to access f5. No, the king actually moves up.
But if you just play h5, like king g3, of course rook e3, but even h5, I think like black just dominating. It's domination completely. But maybe there's bishop g2 there. So yeah, you probably have to play rook e3.
Although yeah, bishop g2 still rook e3 check in that position, and I think Minh is busted. I mean, good. Maybe you can even get away with rook f4, but Magnus is not one to engage in those shenanigans. Bishop f5, I think, or something like h6, rook f7. You will see total patience from Magnus. Boa constrictor conversion here.
It really, when you actually get deep into the Magnus endgames and not just shorthand, short form content or even recaps of his games, you actually spend 15 minutes analyzing a move, just one move that he plays. It really is fascinating. He makes moves that are just annoying in endgames, and he's so patient. He's patient. He waits for the opponent either to self-destruct, and in the case that they do defend perfectly, like let's say a Fabiano, all right, then he beats you over 40 to 50 moves. Like look at this. Now he can play rook f4 because the rook is protected, and exactly, it's just infiltration.
I thought he was going to play bishop f5 20 moves ago. He waited for the perfect moment when the path is clear, but hats off to Minh. I mean, he is doing whatever he can. He's got too many weaknesses, and Levy, every weakness you pointed out ends up being important. The b2 pawn, that is the deciding factor. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it seemed like such a far reality that Magnus would ever get to that pawn, and Magnus has gotten to that pawn.
No.
There's a weakness, he will sniff it out.
No. It's it was written in the stars when he played pawn to a4. Minh never got his queenside going, and Magnus just absolutely dominant the first two games. Minh's got to shake it off a bit. I actually have a feeling Magnus will not return to those Spanish lines because Minh had so much preparation there. He's going to stick to this d4, c4 stuff. And this is interesting. He plays the Catalan where you give up the pawn completely. Like this whole setup by Black is designed to stop the Catalan, and Magnus just plays the Catalan anyway. Yeah,
Magnus just he does not care what his opponent's setup is. He will impose his will on the board. Now, Levy, I should point out that Magnus and Hikaru have two, in my opinion, very different approaches to the SCC. Both have led to excellence over the years. Hikaru is a stubborn guy in terms of openings. He will choose his offbeat openings and he will play them, come hell or high water. He played the Scandi yesterday against Jose. He had an average of a -2 position or +2 position for white out of the opening. He kept playing it and he makes it work. Magnus will not hesitate for a second to swap out openings with white or black. He doesn't care. He has such versatile knowledge that the moment he senses that he's uncomfortable with a line that his opponent is playing, he will not bother to try to finesse or tease out an improvement. He'll just play a different first move.
And I love that. I really enjoy watching Speed Chess Championship matches where you get 25 different openings, but that's not how most people play. And if you look historically over the last several seasons and who's been in the SCC, it's actually very common for about 80 to 90% of a match, especially in the Blitz segment, because Bullet is very random, to feature the same two openings over and over. Look no further than not a Speed Chess Championship match, but a recently completed, mildly controversial event held in Madrid, Spain, between one Vladimir Kramnik and Jose Martinez. They literally played the same two openings the entire match. I don't know much about that match. I wasn't involved. But Magnus, like you said, will play everything and anything. And which one do you like? You like getting a masterclass of a certain opening, or you like getting 20 different openings?
I'm with you. 20 different openings, and kudos, Levy, to you for holding down the fort on that event. That could not have been easy. And I think people underestimate how hard it is to be, a bystander in those types of situations.
It's a fun time.
Well done. But already here we can see Magnus developing the initiative. Typical Catalan situation. I like a match which has many different openings. I like a theoretical duel. I like seeing the players try to, again, tease out where exactly is my mistake coming on move 20 or move 15. But here we get a diversity of structures. We get tactical and positional situations. We have a surprise Levi Rosman who does not like the move knight f to d7.
Isn't 95 like that? Like 97 smells. You know, you've used that term before.
And it doesn't smell like lilac and, pine car scent.
No. It smells. That's
when you
because
come out of the chevron.
Black is 2 moves away from getting castled still. Where's the blue arrow? Can we get a blue? Where's the blue arrow? And where's the when you finally need it?
The lack of a blue arrow, Levy, tells us there's more than one good move. And 95 bishop f4 is just nasty for Black. Knight f to d7. Now Minh was obviously keeping the other knight on its initial square by design. He wants to make sure that there are no discovered attacks against this Black bishop.
But what is the plan after bishop f4? Is he going to take on b5 and then figure it out? Or
bishop e7, I think. I think the point is this, and we can pull up a board really quickly. Bishop f4. Minh will just ignore, and there are some tricks up his sleeve, too. He's like, it takes 2 to tango.
Queen c7,
and, the knight. But okay. But the problem is Magnus can sidestep this. He can just move his queen up to a5, which he's actually choosing to do immediately, also good. And Minh will lose this pawn or lose this bishop, and neither option is acceptable for Black. He's gone here immediately.
Yeah, queen a5.
Maybe this.
And wow, bishop d6. I mean, you're going to lose a pawn, so you're going to have equal material, and white will have the bishop pair, and white will have some targets, and white is Magnus. So he's got Magnus bonus and a better position across the board.
Yeah, this is a calamity. There's no other way to put it. This is a catastrophic start for Minh, and he could lose this game in 16, 17 moves. I mean, the problem isn't that he's losing a pawn, Levy, as you're hinting at. You would love to just give away a pawn and castle and get your pieces to safety. Total lack of coordination here. You could lose all 3 of your queenside pawns easily in the blink of an eye.
Not really sure what he can do. And in many ways, what I'm sensing right now from Minh is that he needs the 3-1 and he needs the 1-1. He needs the segment where he has way less time to overthink things. It really feels as though he is overthinking things. In that first game, he had rook to d3. It was a move you play by hand, and then you sort of figure it out. In the second game, things spun out of control also very quickly. And here he's down a minute and a half. He hasn't stopped shaking his head, and the opening has clearly not worked out in his favor.
Yeah, and the thing is, I played Magnus in a pretty long 3-0 match a couple of days ago. And sometimes there are very rare situations when I feel like I can calculate it, I can hang with him. But sometimes the kind of Magnus that shows up, he just starts winning game after game, and you feel like I can absolutely lose 15 games in a row. Like that is absolutely a possibility that is on the table. I lost 8 in a row before I recovered with a lucky tactic. But he sometimes gets into that meat grinder mentality, and you feel like there is literally nothing you can do. There's no opening you can play. There's no trap that you can spring. There is no position that you can steer the game to, because he is just superior across the board, literally and figuratively. And this is the kind of Magnus that has shown up in the early going of this match.
This is also a textbook position from his wheelhouse. He's got nagging pressure, bishop pair, time advantage, and it will take a Hikaru-esque, if you will, defensive effort here from Minh not to lose.
Yeah, this is a mess. Bishop pair, e4.
And they have already began advertising the next match. I mean, you cannot call for a more disrespectful graphic.
Yeah.
Just, guys, here's the next match. All right, this is... No, that's not the call to action. Go ahead.
It's coming up, though. That next match, it's just a sign for folks at home, to clear your schedule, because the 2 ends, Nepo and Noterbeck, They will be duking it out in the second part of our doubleheader, coming your way, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. It'll be a fun day. It's not a fun day for Minh. Everybody's enjoying this. Minh is not enjoying this. He needs to change the course of this narrative, the way that this match is unfolding. Look at Magnus converting this. Queen b5, just grabbing space. e5 will be met with bishop h3. The bishop is just sort of lying in wait, like a stealthy snake.
This is one of the you live for chess positions like this. People would probably tribute an arm and a leg if you told them that every game you play with white will look like this one does. Just every advantage going in your favor, and you just have to convert it the right way. But you can convert it the wrong way and still win. Yeah, you just draw arrows. Every arrow is good. D5, E5,
knight d2, b3, h4. I mean, you can see Magnus playing anything here. Bishop d2, of course, also good.
Yeah, bishop d2. I mean, the pawn is weak. You want to take the pawn, right? You can't even... Yeah, Minh has to do something. So he plays b3, but... Yep. Exactly. And
in the time situation, too, Lev, you just look... I mean, it's just overwhelming pressure on all fronts.
You can play rook c3 here. You can play e5, bishop c3. Just any move. Bishop c3, and you start a kingside attack instead. You can do anything you want. And he just takes the pawn.
c5. Good attempt by Minh. I mean, trying to open up the board, create some element of tactics here. But yeah, the price of a move for Magnus is very, anything keeps the decisive advantage. This is the issue. Where is the counterplay going to come from? This is resignable. This is painful to look at, this position.
Positions like this where you've got maybe 5-6 seconds are actually some of the hardest to win. We've just complimented all of Magnus's efforts, but they're actually some of the toughest to win because this is where your heart starts pumping. Where you're like, I'm going to win the game. I've done everything right. My opponent's got 5 seconds. Please just give up. Mm-hmm. And that's where you might slip up and allow a little bit of counterplay. So you sort of expect the game to just sort of play itself out.
That is look at that heads-up defensive idea by Minh. We've been singing Magnus's praises, but let's not overlook his moxie here in trying to hold this position. And bishop takes b6, the queen would have returned. Yes,
it would have returned. It would have pinned. And then you would have maybe had opposite colored bishops, which is drawable. And this is still a game. But it's very close to being totally over.
Yeah, his position just one little natural disaster away. Magnus has to be very judicious about when he pushes this pawn, b4. The knight will drop back, and we talk about patience. This is what it's all about. Keeping the pawn on its initial square for as long as it takes. Yes. He's down to 25 seconds, by the way. He's gotten a little bit too comfortable here with his time advantage.
And I was going to say, he can't be patient for much longer. You've got milliseconds on both clocks now, and like I said, this is the phase of the game. It gets hard to convert a position because the other guy just won't go down.
Yeah, Minh is so good at bend but not break. He'll give you space and territory, but he won't blunder. Queen a8, such inventive defense. But Magnus seeing through all of the little traps here.
Yeah, but they're not over. This is great stuff from Black. But he just can't activate any pieces, Danya. He's just playing with one piece.
Yeah, that queen is doing everything it can. It's turning the world over, but you need the minor pieces to participate, and they are. Now they are.
Yes, now they are, and this is the closest. This is the closest Minh's been alive the whole game.
Unbelievable. But the problem is he's still down a pawn. Magnus is still really good in these situations.
Oh my goodness. There are so many tactics now. Oh, not anymore.
Bishop F2, knight F2, but the bishop drops back.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, knight H1.
Knight H1, but it's not possible. And I think just bishop E1 is on the way.
Queen H4. What? Minh had Queen H4.
Oh, now Magnus is down on time. 2 seconds remaining for Magnus. There's no knight forks.
Oh my gosh, where does he go? He could get checkmated here. The king's zigzagging its way out of the checks.
Knight C1?
There's not enough, Levy.
Oh. And Queen H7 is mate. Oh, there was check, but yes.
Still not over. There's a perpetual... White has to be very careful about how he escapes these checks.
Queen C... Oh my goodness, Danya, this is crazy.
Bishop B3, Queen A8. Minh still going. That queen is indefatigable. Another check.
Queen B1. Oh, it's.
This ain't
And that's
fair.
it.
This just isn't fair.
And there we go. Wow. And he applauds his opponent because that was actually way closer than Magnus would have liked. But it's 3-0.
Minh, I gotta say, Minh is so classy. If I lost a game like that, my mouse would have been deep in South Carolina by now. That was just the fact that was a nail biter. I know it's hard to do this, but Minh has to take some inspiration from that. He is one resilient dude. Wow, what a high octane battle there at the end.
That was nuts. That was absolutely nuts. And Minh did everything right, but unfortunately, even with the knight in the white position, a lot of people would have lost that game, blundered a fork, but not Magnus. And he goes right back to the same offbeat King's Indian.
What? No, Minh this is the thing, right? It just starts compounding. The issues start compounding. You get in your own head, and he's just blundered the pawn.
And we see there he's quite unhappy with himself because he's better than this.
Yeah, but this is what Magnus does to people. And sometimes you actually sack the pawn on G2, and Minh is trying to make the most out of it. He's trying to, he's trying to make it work for him. The problem is this construction is so solid. You can play H5, but Black is just not going to react to that at all.
This is a great position for a bullet game. Unfortunately, there's 5 minutes on the clock nearly, so it's just not going to work out.
Yeah. Queen H4 coming. Minh's king is stuck in the center. I mean, he needs an off-ramp. The problem is even if you go queenside castles, Black has these mating patterns with knight c5, and then bishop takes d4 and knight b3. So, from the frying pan into the fire comes to mind.
And we see there that the pre-match prediction was 76%. The current win probability is 87%. And I would even argue that feels a little bit generous because Minh has yet to get on the board. And that's what we were really looking forward to. Is he's a 3,000 plus rated blitz and bullet player, but he's really struggled, Danya, after that first game, which was quite good. But he's very quickly spinning totally out of control.
That was an unexpected turning point. I mean, you don't usually think that the first game of the match, of an SCC match, is going to set the tone, potentially for the rest of the match. But the rules are different when you're playing these top guys. You need that extra boost of confidence. And if you stop believing that you can even win a game, no matter how favorable the circumstances, this is going to start happening. And we've seen these crazy blowouts. For Minh, he needs to put an end to this right now. I mean, 39 minutes left in the first segment. Still tons of time, but you can't keep telling yourself that because the time is finite, Levy. And the wins are not going to stop racking up unless you change things up.
And that actually has me thinking. I would like to publicly right now propose, and they've just brought me on this commentary so I can mess with the format. I would like to publicly propose and campaign for one timeout flag per player in SCC matches, and you can activate your timeout. You get a 3-minute break. You get to gather your thoughts, and then you get to continue the match. What do you think about that?
I think that's, in general, I agree with that. The thing is, there will be a short break, I think, potentially even after this game. There's the halftime break. And I think it might coincide with the moment Minh needs it most. But yeah, that's an interesting thought for sure.
Yes, but I would like the players to be able to control that, not a pre-programmed timeout. Sure, we get those too in sports, but I would like the players to control it as well, and it would be interesting.
But here's the thing, Levy. If the way that I tilt, for example, there's nothing that can make me take a break. I know that I have to take a break, and the more I know that, the less likely I am to take a break. No. Start the next game. I want to come back and win, and that's how you start losing.
Yeah,
just loads of games at a time.
I mean, every sport has it, right? In tennis, you have unofficial timeouts. It's when the players go for their medical timeouts, and those are kind of controversial. But in sports, teams get on a momentum, you call a timeout. Not in football. In football, you just dive on the pitch, pretend to be injured for 10 minutes, And the clock doesn't stop running because football makes so much sense. But I digress.
You mean soccer?
Yeah. We got an international audience.
Oh, yeah.
The one that's played with your feet.
The ones that, okay, hence football. Yeah.
Yes,
Not the one where the quarterback throws the ball with his hands.
Yeah.
Hence football.
Yes. Magnus still in control. Not too much has changed. Still a pawn up. And I'm really concerned. In the pre-match prediction, it was supposed to be 5-2 in this segment and then 5-2 in the next segment. Minh's he's got to at least hold a draw in one of the games. He's got to get on the board.
Yeah, he can't get half a point. Give him anything, just a tiny morsel. He's just starved for points here. And when you've got that big fat 0 on the scoreboard, I mean, even if it was just half to 3.5 to soften the blow in some way, Magnus kept that extra pawn. He's gotten pieces off the board, Levy. This endgame looks hopeless. He's up 2 minutes on the clock. I mean, these time advantages he gets are crazy.
He looked frustrated there on the camera, actually. I don't really know about what. Maybe he didn't like the counterplay that he was allowing. But again, just like the previous game where I had mentioned, you do all the work, you have a time advantage, but it's the hardest to actually win that position. As with 5 seconds on your opponent's clock, you suddenly just wait for them to lose. We're in a very similar situation here, but I just don't see it. I mean, I think Magnus is going to put his king on f7, and what do you do with white? Or g7.
Yeah, the nature of the winning positions that Magnus has had thus far in the match, there's different types of winning positions. Sometimes you have an attack, and, the path is narrow. You need to calculate. Here, the path is Ditsky. I mean, it's anything wins. And that's such a crushing feeling. Like, your opponent has 6 moves that keep the approximate evaluation. Where is the swindle going to come from?
The path is Ditsky.
I've made that one before, by the way. I've repeated that.
Okay.
I made that one a couple months ago.
All right. That was slick. Magnus is now 2 pawns up, and white does not have any counterplay. None. That's not an understatement. I mean, the rook is going to... One of the rooks is about to go to the H file. The other is going to go to the A file. And Minh is moments away from resigning this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to say. I mean, there's not much to say to contribute to the understanding of this position, because there's nothing to understand here. Bishop takes e4. He's going to be 4 pawns up once the rook recap. Okay, calm down, Engine. It's a simple tactic, but it's the cherry on top. It's the flag planted on top of the mountain.
Yeah, we made it. If you take back rook e4, and black is 4 pawns up, recovering the bishop, and Minh sits back because he's not happy with the way that this has started. Yeah,
this has been complete domination from move 20 of the first game. That's when things started turning around, when Minh allowed that knight g5 move. Had he traded queens, he would have been much better in the first game. You just never know. And again, the match isn't over. He'll be down 4-0. Levy, the first step is at least make a draw. At least convince yourself that it's possible.
I would play rook takes e2 here for absolutely 0 reason. King e2 and like bishop d5 and win and just be 5 pawns up. But Magnus retreats the bishop, and that's it.
Yeah, he's as many pawns up on the board as he is points in the match. He leads, yes, 4-0 in the blink of an eye. That's how quickly things go from equal to bad, from bad to worse. This is bad. Levy, he is just facing the prospect of a total disaster. Minh needs to turn the narrative here.
And I think Magnus just got a bonus point. They gave him an extra point because I guess, I don't know what happened there. He just got 2 points for winning that game. It's actually 4-0. Magnus steps away for a break. We will as well. And one man who needs a break right now is Tuan Minh Le.
Yes, he definitely does. This break comes at the right time. If you need a break from the monotony of your work routine, there's the perfect opportunity to take one, because tickets for this year's SCC Finals in Paris, which is fast approaching, are officially on sale. For the first time ever, you are invited to join the SCC's 4 finalists as they compete in person for the crown. All tickets will get you in the room with our live commentator team, plus perks like streamer boosts and raffles, and you can level up your ticket tier to unlock the VIP lounge. player meet and greets, and more. Early bird pricing will last until the end of the month only. That's 4 more days. So head to go.chess.com/SCC tickets or use !TIX, !TIX in the chat to book your seat at the historic finals. Don't delay. Make it a trip to Paris. Family-friendly fun coming your way at the SCC finals. And more fun coming your way on the other side of this break as the Magnus Minh match continues in just a few minutes.
Have a friend or family member who loves chess? Gift them a chess.com membership today and see them take their game to the next level. You can choose a gold, platinum, or diamond membership for 1 month or 1 year. Want your gift to arrive on your friend's birthday or on a holiday? Gifts can be scheduled to arrive up to 90 days in the future. All premium plans include an ad-free experience, unlimited puzzles and lessons, and unlock all bots. Go platinum to add unlimited game review or diamond to unlock insights and coach explanations. Give the gift of chess today.
Introducing Chess Events by Chess.com, the brand new app that helps you stay up to date with the latest tournaments and results of the most important games. Get breaking news, tournament updates, live stream coverage, results of your favorite players, or a specific matchup you're excited for. Never again miss a tournament's final outcome, a critical moment, or news recaps by the world's top chess journalists. Chess Events makes it easier than ever to bring the chess world to you. Download the app today.
Magnus Carlsen is off to a commanding lead, a 4-0 start in the first match of today's doubleheader at the 2024 Speed Chess Championship. His opponent, Minh, also known as Wonderful Time. He needs to change the narrative, and He needs to reverse the trend of this match and do it fast. Levy Rosman, it's not looking good. I mean, the way the games have gone, it's not just the score, it's just wire-to-wire domination thus far by Magnus Carlsen.
You said it. Tuan Minh Le his username is Wonderful Time. He's having anything but a wonderful time, and this is kind of an interesting scoreboard here where it's just all zeros, but 4 points scored in the 5+1 segment. Smarter Chess, the beloved statistical predictive model that we have for these matches, said it would be 5-2 in this segment, but Danya, Minh will be happy with half a point at this point.
Yeah, 5-2 is a pipe dream, honestly. Minh would give an arm and a leg to be down 3 after 30 more minutes of this. The openings haven't really been, I mean, they've been a problem for Minh, but it's been, some positions have been pretty decent for him. The early middle games, though, have just been a complete blowout. And once again, you can see Magnus changing up his openings almost every game. He's played C4, D4, and E4. He keeps you guessing, and he keeps you on your toes, right? He keeps forcing you to solve new sets of problems, and it just makes him just the most nasty opponent ever.
Absolutely. He's got a Catalan, he's got regular Queen's Pawn games, and this one is a Neo-Catalan. He's got the 2 bishops again. Perhaps he evaluated in that previous game that having the bishop pair really served him nicely, and now he's going to try to use the doubled A-pawns to put pressure. It's not looking good. And I don't know how Minh is supposed to play to his strengths against Magnus, because right now every strength seems to be in Magnus's favor.
Yeah, I mean, that is just the nature of playing the best player of all time. There's only so much you can do. But there's definitely more that Minh could be doing. He could be playing better. I think he is chastising himself to some degree for some of these unforced errors. If he can at least eliminate the unforced errors in the early middle game, he gives himself a better shot of extending the game. We saw him almost come back miraculously down a pawn. If he can do that, then it's within his capability to make these games close. B5, lovely idea. Levy, let me show this really quickly. Queen takes b5, I think loses to the unexpected tactic, bishop f3, and suddenly rook b8 skewers the queen. Who remembers this bishop on b2?
Yeah, and I have a feeling Magnus didn't see this, because he kind of gave a little facial expression like, oh, yeah, you got me, and he may come to regret this, because those pawns are looking really nice on the queen side.
Yeah, there's also more black pawns and white pawns after Minh secures the goods with queen takes a5, which he's not rushing to do. He's afraid.
He's afraid of a3. He's afraid of his opponent, Danya. I mean, it's not easy, You suddenly start thinking this was all planned by Magnus.
I'm afraid of my opponent, and I'm afraid of Magnus, and I'm not even playing him right now. I mean, just, again, it's the aura. It's hard to put into words, but you start questioning even the most basic decisions that would take you 3 seconds under regular circumstances. I find it hard to believe that after queen takes a5, a3, black's queen side collapses. Really? Queen b6 there?
I guess AB. And
bishop takes f3?
AB, bishop f3 you want to play first. And then that might be that's an important detail, because then there's no bishop to d4. It's important to show, because otherwise bishop d4.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we're grappling with here is this line. Sorry to cut you off there. And now bishop takes f3, because if you take cb, probably still okay for black. But yeah, bishop d4 is very unpleasant. But the other idea is that bc in this position, intermezzo, apparently this is still equal. Is the eval bar just like frozen? Because this was my idea. But maybe what just sacks the exchange and goes like
queen g5, yeah. Queen g5, yeah.
But okay, is very deep.
Yes.
In anybody's game here. Well, apparently that's not the move.
No, I don't know. But, and he has finally taken. Wow.
So he took on f3, then took on a5, but we could get the same position, right? If Magnus plays a3 now anyway, which he's very likely to do, queen b6 will Actually, no, it won't transpose, because it will eliminate... That's actually very smart by Minh. It will eliminate this intermezzo b takes c5 that we were just looking at.
But a3, yeah, queen b6, you have to be a bit careful because black is about to play a5 and hold it all together. Maybe d4. Exactly right. Exactly.
Wow.
Wow. What? Would you ever
It's
play
brilliant.
this? Would you?
No.
Would you ever consider it after like even 15 minutes of
No.
thinking?
I mean, A takes b4, I ruled out, as probably everybody in the chat did, I ruled this out when I realized that bishop d4 is not a thing. So it's, obvious that why would you ever allow connected passers, which you clearly cannot target. But Magnus using the queen trade, I call this the weaponized queen trade. Why is he trading queens? Suddenly it turns out that Minh, these pawns are caught with their pants down, both of them. Rook fb1, all the pieces arrive at the right spot at the perfect moment. How do you defend a7?
I don't know.
You don't.
You don't, yeah. Wow. But better put the pants back on. That's what we're looking at. Queen e3 is a brilliant move, and Minh senses a level of desperation, so he starts playing h5 and looking for some counterplay, Danya. But he might just end up a pawn down.
Yeah, at least he needs to try to keep the b pawn. If he loses the b pawn, he likely loses the game because, I mean, I'm going to make a pretty obscure statement here. White has the bishop pair. I know most people probably didn't notice this. I know I'm always there for you to, enlighten people on the finer nuances of the position. Now, Magnus has some work to do because this pawn is not easy to get to. Maybe he wants to start expanding in the center. Maybe he expands on a typical Magnus thing to do would be to go like h3, g4 when you least expect it. But it is an endgame, and it is good to involve the king.
And very quickly, the pawn on b3 could turn out to not be as strong as one would think. I'm not really sure how black is supposed to make progress. Yeah, rook is coming back.
I don't think it's good. I don't think it's pretty strong. It looks like a weakness.
Yeah, but knight g4 is a nice idea. That's kind of showing why he played h5. And yeah, you might need to part with the bishop here, which you kind of don't want to do.
Yeah. But eventually cooler heads prevail. It's like paying taxes. The consequences of not doing it are greater than the unpleasantness of forcing yourself to do it.
Yeah, we pay our taxes here, IRS. We promise. Now, do you ever want to play rook a4, rook c4 with the king getting closer and the endgame clearly switching sides? I don't feel so, right? Why would you do that to your pawns?
Well, you might have to because white could get checkmated. Because rook h5 is now suddenly a huge threat. And kudos to Minh. This came out of nowhere. It felt like, again, Magnus is starting to, to impose his will to lay down the law in the position. And suddenly, Minh's rooks are getting frisky.
Just
but
king
this
d1.
is just in time. Yeah, you can't go rook h5 because of rook takes b3. Which is a threat, by the way.
Best chance Minh has had in about an hour. And but now he doesn't have rook h5 anymore. He just missed rook b3?
Yeah.
Oh, and he bonks himself in the head. He can't believe it. I mean, and yeah, Magnus kind of throws up his eyebrows like, sorry, man.
Yeah, rook a1. It gets worse, too, because you might think, oh, let's get some counterplay. No, rook a7. Of course, Magnus's bishop is better than the knight.
No, checking actually was slightly more accurate because you weaken f7.
Yeah. And again, he's up a minute, by the way. I mean, always that's in the background, right? He has not been down on time, I think, in a single one of these games. So bishop takes e5, rook takes h2. As long as Magnus can protect this pawn, he should be technically winning.
Yeah, now I would argue that as a human being, this is not that simple with white. You actually really don't like losing the pawn on h2 because you get nightmares. You start thinking, I'm going to lose the pawn on g3 and I'm going to allow a queen. But Magnus is not human. So he's going to just...
Nightmares?
Yeah, yep, nightmare, yes. But no pun intended there. Maybe he's just going to take on e5 and comfortably convert this. Like you said, just defend the pawn on e2.
Yeah. I once submitted 10 puns to a contest to see which one would win. No pun intended. Sorry.
I really thought that you did that. I thought you actually submitted. But did you just make that up again?
No, that's a known pun. I mean,
Oh.
I would be the kind of guy who submits original puns to a contest, and none of them would win. But this is depressing. Magnus has all of his pawns under control. I mean, look at the pawn chain here: E2, D3, and E4.
But there
Apparently
is
not
something.
the best though.
Yeah, apparently not the
H5.
best, but it's not really. Yeah, Rook H5. I guess he's gonna get pinned, but okay. I mean, it's not over. Let's put it this way: it's not over, but it feels all but over. And the bishop is coming back to. It's not going back to E1. Wow.
Oh, but F5. Magnus is being a little bit too cavalier with these pawn breaks. I think he's just trying to create practical problems for Minh.
Oh,
F5 apparently wasn't the move.
is the knight
Still
getting
listen
trapped?
to the commentator.
Is there E6 or Rook C6? Okay.
Oh my
E6
God,
takes
E6
E6. Yeah, but it takes and come back.
Knight comes back.
Yes. Knights
Wait,
can go
E6,
backwards.
E6, knight takes A6, bishop E5 was really interesting, but that ship has sailed.
Ooh.
It's getting messy, though. It's getting very messy.
Ooh, he had to put the bishop on D4 to get out of the way of the knight. But Danya, he's going to get winning chances again. Bishop D4.
But Black also has his chances. F3 at the right moment. But Black is just one tempo shy of creating that counterplay. E7, F3, though, is not obvious at all.
This is very unpleasant. Rook C6. Oh, he's bringing the king, but apparently Minh is in time.
Rook E2 coming. Minh's going to hold this. At least Black is going to hold this. Black might actually be in the driver's seat now. I would go King F1 and Bishop takes G7 to bail out.
Yeah, King F1, and it's looking like Minh is going to get on the board. E7. Wow.
Bishop E3.
Well, Magnus doesn't even continue the game. He could have played Bishop E3 maybe, but this is just a draw. There it is. And Minh is on the board.
And he does it in pretty impressive fashion. It looked like another one of those games which Magnus was controlling from the start to the finish. But Minh created tactical chances. And that's what you have to do. I mean, you have to make it chaotic and tactical and messy and Lionel for Magnus to have any chance of going wrong.
I knew that one was coming. The second I heard there was a pause there. And we have a big moment here. Will Magnus play for a King's Indian, or will he play a Grunfeld style game with pawn to D5 or C6 D5?
Even he doesn't know the answer to that question. Yes. Good man.
Yeah, the King's Indian. He plays directly into what Minh likes. The Fianchetto. King's Indian. White has not committed the knight to C3.
Oh, this line. Yeah, this is fashionable.
Look at the opening book. Shoot up. Only Black never wins this position. You know, you just
Knight E5 is a huge problem. I mean, Black can equalize. I think Queen D4 is the best move there for Black, but you have to know the minutia of that line. This is why I don't really play C5. It's precisely because of this line. Now Black is worse because White is coming out really, really quickly here with an initiative against these two pawns. But you have to be careful with White, right, Levy? If you play Queen B3 at the wrong moment, Black will play Knight C6 and quickly put the knight on D4. And the tactics very often favor the King's Indianer. The gods in the sky know what opening to reward.
I'm looking at some positions here where maybe like with White, I'm trying to put the pawn on E3, and I'm wondering if I should trade on F6, Bishop G5, Bishop F6, Knight C3, E3. You know, get the knight to D5. The Trumpowski player in me wants to get rid of the dark squared bishop. Minh does play Queen B3, but wow, he just grabs the pawn on C5. There it is.
This is going to get very chaotic. Knight D4 is likely met by Knight takes E6. Now Magnus takes on E2, another intermezzo. Yeah, how do you choose a move here for Black? Because you also have to be careful, Levy. Knight G4. White's king may seem safe, but it's anything but.
I really struggle in situations like this, especially in the 5+1 format. I almost feel I have an unlimited amount of time. So I would sit here and I would calculate in 10 different directions. You know, with White, you're looking at Queen E3. You're looking at a bishop move. You're looking at Knight C3, Knight D2, you know, Rook E1. I mean, Rook E1 you wouldn't consider because Knight takes bishop maybe. But what do you play here?
And those who haven't had breakfast yet are also considering Queen takes B7, which I think is a terrible move because of Queen takes C4. But you're considering it, and This is why I tell lower rated players, Levy, one advice I like to give is if you want a serious fighting chance at an upset, get these types of, as Dvoretsky calls them, irrational positions where nobody has a GPS system, right? It's like, doesn't matter what your rating is, you are going to struggle by definition, and you're going to be prone to making blunders no matter who you are. Maybe with the exception of Magnus, I don't know.
Danny, by the way, queen b7, queen c4, is there queen e7? Like, even that is not so clear.
Yeah, knight g4, bishop a8, knight g3. I mean, it's just like someone vomited all over the chessboard there.
Yeah, I don't want to do it. And we do see Minh there. He spent 25% of his time to put the knight on c3. Yeah, he is playing a Magnus Carlsen.
Oh. Did Levy just freeze on us there? Yeah, looks like we'll get Levy back momentarily here. But I'm going to hold down the fort for a little while here. Looks like a trade on c3, followed by knight g4. Magnus establishing a presence on the king side, attacking the f-pawn. f3, alert reaction by Minh. And there's so many traps and zaps here under the surface. Bishop f4 would have been knocked out by rook takes f4 with immediate checkmate. This is why the white king is far from safe. The knight recovering, moving back to e5. And the position remains very chaotic. Levy, I think we got you back. You haven't missed much.
Yeah. I guess my internet just didn't feel like participating in this chaotic middle game. It was so chaotic, it crashed the airwaves. But it looks like a position that Magnus has had with white a few times with the bishop pair, but this time it's in Minh's hands.
And the question for the queen, now queen d5 looks like it solves the problems for black, but I don't think it does, because white can play f4. And this fianchettoed bishop on g2, it's been kind of hiding under that blanket for a while, but it's going to wake up eventually. Let me tell you, I like the way Minh has handled this very, very messy position.
Not to be confused with a Lionel type of position, right? That's
right.
So those are the ones we try to avoid. A move like f4 is a huge dopamine move because you activate your bishop, you kick the knight out of the center of the board, but you have to be delicate about when you play that move. And queen b6 is fascinating because after queen b6, a b6, black's structure is terrible, but he's relying on the dynamics, the legendary book, which I'm sure you've read by Mr. Dorfman, right? That's
chess method, yeah.
Yeah, the methodology of chess, statics and dynamics. That's the good stuff. And black is relying on open lines, diagonals, because otherwise white is totally winning positionally.
Yeah, I was made to read that book by my coach, who was lobbying for it for a year. You have to read Dorfman. Nobody approaches the position. Nobody will teach you how to think like Joseph the Dorfman. That's not actually his nickname. It's one of those things like when in high school we read Shakespeare or, Heart of Darkness or some classic. I understand intellectually that this is supposed to be a work of genius, but it doesn't change the fact that I hate every single page of it.
Absolutely. And Catcher in the Rye. What else? What else did we have to read? 1984?
1984 was made an impression on. I did actually. That was the one book we didn't have to read for school. I can't remember a single book we had to read in like 10th grade, 11th grade.
We had to
read.
I'm
blanking on everything.
The Giver. That was a book we had to read.
We had to read in 6th grade. Lois Lowry, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Reminiscing about childhood readings aside, Minh throws himself back in his chair again, but I don't know why. The move looks totally normal.
But okay, is it a tactic? Bishop c3, rook d1, knight f2.
Maybe that's what he missed.
I haven't predicted a single one of these last 15 moves. I mean, it's just like, I have no idea what they're going to do.
Listen, you're a dynamic player. In no universe do you think you're going to be able to save the pawn on c3, right? You just rely on e6 and b7 being weak and the pawn on c3 being kind of a necessary sacrifice.
Yeah, and black isn't even really that excited to take it. It's sort of it's a weird game of chicken where the pawn is so weak, white's not trying to defend it, but the pawn is so weak that black knows that he can take it when the bigger problems in the position have been solved. Now the time, again, is a problem for me. Again,
I was going to say C4. C4. Now, suddenly you can't take the pawn anymore because the E6 pawn would hang. Oops.
Yep. What's white's next move? White probably wants to target this knight now. Rook b to d1 is a very serious, I would call it almost a threat. Magnus sensing the danger, trying to swap the queens. Another excellent move, by the way.
And for the first time in the match, I would say Magnus is actually defending for a prolonged period of time. So we're getting to see a different element here of his game. But let's keep in mind, the second Minh gets low on time and makes an inaccuracy, Magnus will pounce. So it's just a matter of keeping the game alive. That c-pawn looking really delicate. That's amazing.
Let me say, the over-under 5 moves ago on the fact that the pawn would land on c5, my life savings would have evaporated pretty quickly there. But now the pawn is, I mean, it's not safe. It's still a weakness, but it's hard to surround. And the resources black is trying to expend to get to this pawn are leaving the other weaknesses abandoned. I mean, rook fe1 is a possibility, f4. I would probably take white here on account of the bishop pair and the ease of attacking the e6 pawn. It's actually not easy to attack at all. Just kidding. That was a lie.
I still much prefer white here. I just feel like I have control still of the position. It might be an illusion, but I do feel like I'm controlling the game. And rook e7 just does not strike me as a great move, because again, now I get to, but Magnus is he's gonna b6, and there it is. And he finally grabs the pawn down, and he's creating his little defensive schematic, and he's a pawn up now.
Yep. And he's a pawn up. He's solved the problem of the e6 pawn. Things have finally settled down. It's still very easy to blunder. There's still a lot of tactical potential hanging in the air. White should not lose this game. I mean, again, this e6 pawn is a target. It's a permanent target, no matter how many times you defend it. But Magnus, he eradicates it.
There it
no
is.
more pawn on e6.
And we're heading
do it.
And bishop e3 there might have been a move.
Oh my gosh, that is a sharp find by Levy. I think that was the best move.
Yeah, I have a feeling it was the best move. That was very cool. Using the bishop as a shield. I have no idea what was the best move after king f3. I guess just king d4. I find those perverted moves, like the ones that are completely terrible. But yeah, Minh is just spinning out of control here, and he can't guard his pawn down, and he's going to lose.
Spinning out of control, sminning out of control. As you said, not having a wonderful time here. Now 2 pawns down. The problem is that a rook trade no longer salvages the situation. If you have to deal only with 1 pawn, you can trade the rooks. Now I think black can play rook e3.
Yeah.
This must be what Magnus is evaluating, because these opposite colored endgames, sometimes you can be 3 pawns down Levy and hold due to a fortress. So it's not always a slam dunk case.
Of course, he doesn't have to. He could just play rook f3. But yeah, he's calculated. I think rook e3 is, and there it is. He's very good at investing his time at the right moment. And the fact that white has these 2 pawns makes this game winnable for black. If those pawns didn't exist at all and it was A and C, it's a draw in many cases. You just create a fortress.
Yes.
But yeah, black will walk the king over and then walk the king the other way. And that's how he's going to win.
But how do you... Whoa, g5 trapping his own king?
What?
What is the idea here? He wants to go h5 and untrap it.
That was crazy.
Oh, I think I understand what he's trying to do. But I'm just kidding. Yeah, but it will be revealed. Maybe a2 and give up one of the pawns to get the other one. But is that winning?
Maybe c4. That's the way you do it. Yeah. You have to give up you have to give up the pawn that's closer, so you have the pawns as far apart as possible.
And now you're going to drive the pawn to g3, tie down the white king, and the classic method: get your king all the way around.
Yeah,
take an Uber to the other side of the board. And win the game.
It's kind of funny because we're taught in endgames you kind of want the pawns together, but in opposite colored bishops endgame you actually want them as far apart as possible to a point. That's a very nice conversion from Magnus, and 5.5 to half is the score here.
That's a very important point, and there's the Russian chess term shtаны, trousers, pants, which refer to pawns on opposite sides of the board. It is the most terrifying possibility in an endgame when you have any piece, no piece is good at stopping pawns on the A and H files, not even a bishop. The bishop gets overloaded. The knight is limited by its range of motion. Another endgame conversion by Carlsen. Man, you just can't catch a break.
Important to note, Magnus has not gone back to the Spanish. He felt the power of Minh's preparation in that first game, and he hasn't returned. He's opting for an Italian, much more slow maneuvering game. Italian, I don't know how you feel about the Italian. I don't know if you play the Italian with white, but I don't understand those positions at all. And it's very trendy right now, all these Italians and structures. And I mean, I am fascinated by the cornucopia of options, to take a word out of your,
That's
lexicon.
a good word.
So it's a very fascinating and deep opening, but boy, is it complicated.
I'm sure Suzanne Collins and Katniss Everdeen approved of that one. But I'm with you, Levy. I've played the Italian, I have a story about it, but the way that it's being played now, not only do I find it scary to even approach, but I don't understand hypothetically how you learn any of the moves. And that's because the amount of move orders in the Italian, how do you write a course on it? How do you write a book on it? I mean, you play a completely different sequence of moves, and then on move 15, you transpose to a line that starts out completely differently. And by minute 5 of studying it, you need like an Advil, and you don't want anything to do with this opening. I'm really impressed at the way that these top players are able to keep information sorted in their mind and play the Italian with a tremendous amount of finesse.
I will just quickly point out that the Magnus Carlsen win probability graph is looking like an airplane taking off. It got to 10,000 feet. The Wi-Fi turned on, unless you're on a Spirit Airlines flight. And then it cruised for a bit, and now it is going up to 37,000. And it's still only 91%. They're still giving Minh a 9% chance, which is he's got to get going on this comeback quickly. He likes these positions with the knight on g6. Yeah, he had that similar in the Spanish, the first game. So
Levy, you're wrong about one thing. If you're on a Spirit Airlines flight, it's not going to take off because it's delayed by 6 hours. So you haven't even gotten to the Wi-Fi yet.
Yeah, I don't think Spirit Airlines will be sponsoring a chess.com event in the future. Or maybe they will. Maybe it's an opportunity for them. But there's no internet period also, probably.
I mean, they're gonna charge you per chess move that you make on the airplane.
Remind me, don't you have like the weird life skill? Like everybody has weird life skills. Don't you have the one where you memorized every airport abbreviation? Is that?
A lot of them, yeah. I mean, world capitals, and at some point I got into airport abbreviations, just airport names in general.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah, I have a thing where if I get shown a tail light of a car of the last like 20 years, I can tell you what car it is.
Whoa. Really?
Yeah, it's pretty close. Some not popular ones, and obviously non-American ones like BYD or something I might not be able to get, but we can test it out. Not now, maybe we should probably commentate, but
next stream, next collab stream, definitely. But Minh, what's going on in this position? The game has been pretty conventional. I mean, you don't actually get this structure every time out of an Italian, and I will share that story. But let's at least try to understand who's in the driver's seat here. Speaking of taillights, it seems actually to be black. I mean, Minh has kind of assembled these pieces the way that you're supposed to. I guess the question is, can black drop a knight into f4? Is knight takes e5 a serious problem there?
Yeah, of course, the question is like, can you, and when do you put the knight on f4? Another option, what about, I was about to say, what about b6, a5? But the computer hates it, and Minh is shaking his head. So that's why, because there is no a5 now. Oops. And yeah, Danya,
suddenly,
just the reversal, like, you play Magnus and it's like grappling, just immediate reversal of the position, complete momentum shift. And suddenly the pawns are flying down the board. There was one move in this game for Minh to do something right, and it's all gone now. Totally flipped.
And he's trying to kind of rejigger his pieces here to make something on the king side work. Magnus is, driving the tank down the queen side. C5, knight f4. I think might be what Minh is relying on here. let's see what happens.
He has to. Why else is the knight on g6, right? Why do we put our pieces on any squares? to hope that they can go forward in the future.
That's right.
And knight f4, there are threats. Bishop takes h3, for example, is a checkmate incoming. So that's
so knight e5.
Yep.
This is the move you pray it's like over the board sometimes. You make a move. You know that there's a response to which you have no idea what you're going to play. And you're just sitting there hoping your opponent doesn't play it. They always play it. There's a beautiful detail here, Levy. I think after knight takes e5, at first I thought maybe black can go back to g6, and I didn't see a way to defend this knight. Then I realized, wait a second, there's knight g4. Then I realized, no, black can play bishop takes g4. The rook is defended. But maybe white can throw in f4, and only if the knight comes back to f4. How many times do you see this? Knight f4 to g6 to f4 to g6 to f4.
And now knight g4, and the rook is not protected, and it's still wrong.
And of course,
apparently.
I'm wrong.
I
mean, f4
bishop
is
g4,
correct,
bishop
but the
d1
idea
or
is
something.
different. Yes, bishop g4, bishop d1. I'm going to double check here what the actual idea is. Magnus has played d6 in the meantime. So here the move is actually d6. Okay, so this goes off the rails completely. We don't have time to explore this because Magnus has chosen a different path.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's just your rook's pawn and bishop all point in a direction. And Garry Kasparov has some great videos on YouTube back in the day, not on his own channel. I would not dare say Garry Kasparov is a YouTuber, but rather in interviews. And he calculates sometimes in generalities. I'm sure you've seen these videos where he goes, I just knew I was winning because I had more pieces on that side of the board. And I love that because I've never thought about chess that way. It's like I had to have something there, which is why Magnus is playing for d6, because that's where everything is pointing. So naturally, even if you don't see anything concrete, something concrete will show itself in the next few moves. And that's why he's going straight down the middle of the board.
You know, that's a good point. By the way, the rook could not have captured on d6. I didn't see that at all because of queen to c5, forking the rook and the bishop, which would have been captured with check. But if a 600 tells you, I thought there was a win there because I had more pieces on the king side, you just kind of laugh and you tell them, well, yeah, you really need to put the emphasis on concrete calculation. If Kasparov says that, you understand that that's a really profound statement because it's underpinned by, no pun intended, it's underpinned by 20 years, 30 years of chess experience at the elite level. So when a top GM makes a general chess statement, you're like, wow, they really must know chess at a crazy level to be able to say that because they're right like 99% of the time.
Absolutely. Having said all of that, position is still very much in the balance, as we see here Magnus taking some time. I don't know about you, but I hate positions like this where I have a knight standing in front of my king side, ready to strike. I'm very bad at handling this sort of kingside pressure. I don't know how to deal with that knight. I want to get rid of it, but you just can't. Yeah. And you have to focus on your strengths. Like are we looking at a queen b6? Are we looking at a d7? Are we looking at knight e5?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's a lot of candidate moves here, and I think the move in Magnus's pocket is probably knight takes e5. Does that lead to a bailout? Well, I guess we're about to find out because Minh, you don't like this though. Bishop b7, maybe this feels very scary.
Yeah, it does. Again, the knight on f4 just sort of spell struck. Maybe white should have played king h2 a while ago to try to play g3. I don't know, but I don't know where the tactic is. I mean, is it queen g5 just threatening a mate?
In a bullet game, I would play bishop b7 just to try to keep all options open. Maybe the correct approach is queen g5, but yeah, bishop b7.
Bishop b7, and you can't move the knight. You want to go knight c6, but you can't do that. f3 was his idea, but then queen g5 is coming?
Yeah, if you have to play f3, that is potentially a catastrophic weakening of the king side. Knight g4, again, this resource, it exists, but still the queen sidesteps the attack. And let's not forget the g2 pawn will then be hanging once again. Magnus finally down on the clock. And of course, he finds just a ridiculous move that saves the day.
Bishop b3 is crazy. And with the plan after knight g2, look, Minh, he can't believe it. He didn't even consider this move. And he plays knight g2. Where's the queen going? B6, g3.
What is the idea?
Wow, knight g4!
No way. No way he plays this.
Queen g3 is so much more natural, right? But it's maybe bad.
Queen G3 is bad because black takes on E1, white takes on E6. And at the end, I think black is able to just liquidate this pawn on D6, and black will be a pawn up. Magnus, seconds ticking down. Does he see the move?
I mean, Knight G4.
He might lose this one.
He's got 3 seconds on the clock. 2. He's got to
1
make a
second.
move.
He's got to move. He's frozen. And he flags. He doesn't see a move.
Did he?
And Minh
Did he
checks
lag
his
out?
internet connection. It's hard to say. Did he not see a move? This is on Magnus-like. I mean, he would play Queen G3. No reaction from Carlsen. I mean, maybe that's because he has such a big cushion, but that was the last game, Levy, of the 5-minute portion. And Minh's first win is a pretty anticlimactic one.
Yeah, and Magnus, we see is still frozen. So, whoa.
Hold on, Levy. Sure, your seatbelt is fastened. Magnus is coming for you.
Oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on, but Minh does get a win ultimately in a very peculiar way, but it's still a 4-game lead for Magnus after the first segment.
Yeah, I mean, Minh needs a lot more where that came from. The silver lining for him, there's no question, as you pointed out, he wants this to get to the 3+1. The longer the time control, the more Magnus is just Magnus and imposes his class. In 3+1, Minh is more experienced at this time control. He's won a lot of Title Tuesdays. I think he feels relatively okay that this is only a 4-point match. Only.
Hey, ultimately, we found our way back to a near smarter chess prediction. 5.5, 1.5, right? And the original prediction was 5-2, but we'll take this one. It's a 4-game lead for Magnus, but a very strange finish. We don't know if the emotions are going to run high as we enter the 3+1, but this is the format we see the players play the most, like you said, at the Title Tuesday. So curious to see what happens.
Well, they will go on a short break to just recover, get ready for the next segment, and so will we. Folks, you're watching the Speed Chess Championship Day 2, Magnus versus Minh. The Battle of the M's returns in just a couple of minutes.
Magnus, do you ever regret walking away from the Classical World Championship?
Not ever is hard to say, but I would say that overall, I don't regret it. Yeah, that's the truth.
Okay. Good. Just checking. Regardless of who wins the candidates tournament coming up, do you think Ding will successfully defend his title?
No. He's telling the truth.
Okay, controversial. Magnus, do you ever regret making 2900 a public target?
No. It's the truth, but it's a very sensitive question for him.
Okay, touched a nerve. Magnus, do you feel you've peaked as a chess player?
Yes. That's the truth.
Okay. Magnus, do you fear the effects of AI in chess?
No. So it is a lie.
Ooh. Okay. Do you think you could beat Hikaru Nakamura in a chess boxing match?
Yeah. That's a lie.
Wow. Do you think you could beat Levi Rosman and Danny Wrench in a blindfold simul?
I don't care. I don't know what the rest of the question is, but I don't care. He does care. He's annoyed by that.
Okay. Have you ever played a competitive game while drunk?
Yes. He's telling the truth.
Do you think Chess 960 will ever match the popularity of classical chess?
No. He's telling the truth, but there's more to that.
Okay. But you hope it might?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Me too. Magnus, do you think cheating is a widespread problem in online chess?
Yes. Yes, he's very sure about that.
How about over-the-board chess?
I'm not sure. He's telling the truth.
Okay. Have you ever cried after a game of chess?
Yes, many times. He's telling the truth.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, when was the most recent time?
Probably the last time I can remember was the London candidates in 2013. Yeah, seems like
Truth. Okay, nice.
We're about to find out, honey. We just got started, so I'll let you know.
And the rebound to Richardson. Still an opportunity with a minute to play.
Welcome back to the 2024 Speed Chess Championship. I am Levy Rosman, GM Daniel Naroditsky, chopping it up for you today. It's day 2, and it's Magnus Carlsen time. And it's been all Magnus thus far in his match against Minh, maybe with the exception of that rather enigmatic end to the last game. But
Yeah, you cut out there for the last like 3 or 4 seconds. I apologize. I didn't. I was like, did you stop talking? My internet has been a bit weird today. I apologize. It's been great so far for one of the participants, but it wasn't great for the last like 5-10 seconds of that segment where he could have had a chance to go totally undefeated. But overall, Danya, I think he'll take a 4-game lead, and Minlay's got some catching up to do. But perhaps his best format is coming up.
And I mean, it hasn't been great this match. It hasn't been great for Magnus's opponents in the past years. He is the reigning SEC champion. I think a lot of people will remember that final match against Hikaru where they went back and forth. It was decided in the very last few seconds. But look at some of those scores. I mean, 22-7. He defeated Vidit by a margin of 9. Nepo by 11. Nepo's playing later today. I mean, Minh is in pretty good company here. Let's be pretty clear. And the score in the Minh match is not nearly that overwhelming. I think he still has a shot. But when the meat grinder starts working, that factory doesn't close until all the bones have been processed.
Yes, that's a very gruesome way of thinking about it. And
I don't know what
we apologize. We apologize to all of our vegetarian and vegan chess fans listening. All of the Beyond Meat processing. That's the way it feels like to play against Magnus. Yes. But by the way, it's really great. Just super expensive. Like I was vegetarian for 6 months, and I really enjoyed eating a bunch of things that tasted like meat but weren't meat. But that's neither here nor there. I know the players are getting set. We've got Minh on camera. We've got Magnus on camera there in full screen. I don't know. I never know what we're panning to. I'm just here to provide some levity if you will. But what does this gentleman have to do to get this match closer, Danya?
Well, first of all, he's got to be happy the time control is reduced, and he had issues with the clock in the 5+1 segment. I think with that extra experience he has in 3+1, he's going to be a little bit more confident. He's going to play faster. Some of the time, he's made unforced errors. Like, he has to eliminate the one-move blunders. Remember, he blundered on G2. There were maybe 2 games or 3 games that he gave away with one-move errors. So he's going to basically have to be perfect. But if I had the formula, then, I don't know. I don't know how to continue the sentence. The fact of the matter is I don't have the formula, sadly enough.
We do have to also remember the +1 is very, very different than a traditional Blitz match that you are used to playing. I mean, you've played Magnus in +0 your whole life. Have you played him ever in +1?
Yeah, several times. I mean, last Title Tuesday game went pretty well for me, but the previous 16 did not.
But it's very different, right? Because clock is almost not a factor at all when you have an increment.
Yeah, when you're playing someone as elite as Magnus, it's not that you can't flag someone. Of course you can, and when things get into a time scramble, that extra second, it disappears in the span of a second, right? It's not a long time. But you also can't orient your play toward flagging. You can't hope to get a rook versus rook position and then play 40 moves. That ain't going to work. You need to play primarily on the board. And someone like Magnus, I mean, Hikaru's time management gets talked about a lot. Magnus's time management is phenomenal. He's rarely in acute time pressure, and yet he knows where to pause and where the critical moments are, Levy. And we kind of take that for granted.
Yeah, we do. Also, he paused a little bit too long in the last game, but I don't think that was of his own doing. Also, friendly reminder that this is not the only match today. They have forced Danya to commentate for 16 hours in a row almost, as he will be on call with none other than FIDE Master James Canty at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Nodirbek Abdusattorov. This is a great matchup. Both these guys play really interesting, dynamic chess. Very, very confrontational. Jan both online and offline, and Nodirbek primarily on the chessboard.
Well said, and this is not a matchup that I kind of remember. I mean, Jan and Nodirbek have obviously played across many formats, but not that frequently. And like you said, it's a clash of fairly similar styles. Jan has been on a pretty good streak lately. Good performance in the CCT. He's warmed up. He's got a chip on his shoulder. And it's going to be a fun one. 1:30, as you said. But Magnus Carlsen, the SEC has been all about Magnus and Hikaru. And eventually the narrative will change. Eventually someone will dethrone them. But it's looking less and less likely that someone is Minh.
Also, we have just gotten word that Magnus just had a full-blown internet outage. He just got it back, so that means that he will be setting up his fair play cameras on both sides, his side camera just for a side profile and jawline, because he wants to show how much he's been mewing. And there it is. So we will be underway in a moment. But this is the struggle of having the high stakes events be on the internet. You have to rely on your local ISP.
Oh yeah, I mean I've had my share of horror stories, and the worst feeling is when the problems are out of your control. That's actually worse than when you did something wrong, like when my camera doesn't work because I left it on overnight. Okay, I can blame myself and I can move on and learn from my mistakes. When your internet is down, you have no idea whether you will be able to play the tournament or not, but we're glad he got it back, and we are underway without further ado.
And Magnus once again goes for knight f6, b6. Now we have kind of like a Trumpowski Queen's Indian fusion, if you will. And he's going to trade, play bishop d3 and castle.
Is that a new type of cuisine? Like I'm opening a restaurant. It's Trumpowski King's Indian fusion.
Yeah, it's a spin-off of London Queen's Indian.
Right.
Full of
Japanese
spice and flavor.
Right, exactly.
And
Okay.
I've played these positions that they're kind of nice. They are. You play e5. There it is. You play e5. You play a3. You kind of control black a little bit, castle. But at a certain point, you have to do something beyond just make improving moves. Like I would play a3. Yep, a3, queen e2, rooks in the center. Like queen e2 here maybe, and just vibe.
Yeah, now it almost looks like an Alipin, and I know Minh is very skilled in these Trompowsky Tory attack positions. He knows them well, and he has to do this. He has to steer the game in a comfortable direction for him. Now, a big question for Magnus, yeah, he takes on e5, and I was going to say, sticking the knight on d4, I would be too scared to do that because after the capture, white has a check on b5, but more and more we see players just, shifting the king to f8, bringing the king out voluntarily, as early as move 2, and they don't seem to care. It doesn't seem to impact the evaluation as much as your intuition would lead you to believe.
Right, because after king f8, you always have g6 and even g5 if you want to get really aggressive, but the king goes to g7, and it's important that Magnus actually managed to get to this position, because otherwise white would have had something very pleasant going on. And yeah, now you kind of begin to question, what next? You could go bishop e4 maybe, bishop e4, queen e4, trade, but that's just equal probably.
But good call. I mean, Minh plays it, but this is a sign that he's not happy with the trend of the game. And this does not just mean draw, right? Against a lot of people, you would trade queens. You can relax, breathe, just assume you're going to make a draw. Not against Magnus. Black is playing for a win here. No question about it. This is a long-term weakness. The big question, Levy, how does Black get this other rook into the game? Because in the end game, you don't always want to castle and allow the white rook to infiltrate. You can't actually do that tactically. You can castle now. Rook d7, rook d8 forces the rook trade. But who does that favor?
Yeah, white's king is closer to the center and faster, but also we frequently talk about the fact that the bishop is better than the knight, but not if the knight is standing on a light square in the center of the board controlling every dark square. So this will likely be a draw, but it's going to be Magnus, I think, who has to prove it.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out a way. Like, the crazy thing is moving this bishop out of e7 was not easy to do because the white pawns are going to constantly kick it away. Yeah, he does go for the trade, and now this should be... I mean, white is not worse anymore because you can go f4 and just bring the king up into the center. Very clear-cut plan here.
A very, very easy plan, but black will get the king to d7, and he will just sit and wait, and this should be a draw, but we will be here for a little while.
Oh, yeah. Now, g5 here is another thing I was going to point out. That can be scary because if you play g5, g3, then you've got an island of pawns that are both stuck on dark squares. Okay, bishop b6 was threatened. Minh gets his king out of the way. Okay, still pretty much balanced here. I don't see anything crazy happening, Levy. I mean, it's just I'm struggling to see how this can get tactical.
Also important for the viewers at home, like how quickly they ran their kings to the center of the board. That is very, very frequently the optimal plan, especially with minor piece endgames where the kings are not in a huge danger. If each side had a rook here, the plans would be very different. Magnus trying to put Minlei's pawns all on dark squares so his bishop can eat them, but it's just not going to happen. And you guys still got to worry about things like knight b3, bishop b2, but it all should be a draw.
Yeah, g4, Minh advancing on the king side. g5 here. I mean, I lose these positions sometimes. You make one sloppy pawn move, and then suddenly you realize, wait a second, I've allowed an outside passer. But I think g5 is pretty clean here. Magnus plays g6.
It's a Magnus move. Yeah, it's to move the pawn one square. You don't have to move it two squares yet. You're going to wait. You're going to see. And bishop takes d4 could be a draw in some positions, and in some positions it could lose you the game. So you don't ever want to rush a move like bishop takes d4.
Although it almost wins you the game because takes in g5 is a situation white has to be super careful about.
Yeah.
I actually think white has king e4 there, and the question is who has the outside pass pawn, which is the pass pawn that is furthest away from all the other pawns.
That is instructive, and if you could probably just put it on the board, or we have the analysis board. But yeah, a lot of people would just snap take everything here. This is actually a losing endgame, but not if you take. You immediately lose. So
the margin. Look how thin the margins are. You trade, white is losing. If white finds king e4, black is losing. Because black has the pass pawn first, but it's not about who's first. White will create the passer, and it'll be the much more powerful one.
Yeah.
So Magnus with g5. So he plays g6 and then g5, following the dictum of never hurrying in the endgame.
it's one of the things totally lost on a general population audience. The fact that these positions are so close at all times and can flip so easily.
Find the tanks.
Oh
Min's
my
gonna
gosh.
lose. That was perfect timing of your statement, Levy.
He
needs 7, yeah.
Yeah, why did he do this? He thinks it's a draw, but
no, G4, Black wins on the spot.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind in these endgames, the one that loses the outside pawn, and look, Minh can't believe he's not in time. He thought it was a draw, but it's just not. It's just not. And yeah, you take, and that's it. You cede the path to the king, and oh, Minh can't believe it. I mean, he's beside himself.
Yeah, and I was gonna say after Magnus played G5, it actually was not so easy to find a move, because you pointed out this idea of the Black Bishop getting to B2. This was kind of hanging in the shadows. Now, Minh, I think, could have dropped his knight back to C2 or traded on G5 and just sort of held the position. But this is what Magnus does. I mean, out of nowhere, he's just suddenly winning. That's no fair.
And it's instructive for the folks at home. Be careful leaving your pawns on the same color as the enemy bishop. Now, of course, Minh didn't lose the game because of that, but he lost the game because things clarified on one side of the board, with the constant threat being that the bishop could win the pawns on the other side of the board. And what is bishop to D2?
I know, I had the same reaction. I've never seen this move, actually. I think I understand why he plays it.
Is he going bishop B4? Okay, I was like, why did he play? What is the point? Can you explain?
Well, first of all, we've essentially transposed now to pretty conventional territory. Knight G6 and Queen C2 and long castles is now, I think, the standard plan. But this is a weird way of starting. I think he's actually trying to discourage B5. Maybe this is the idea, because after B5, let's say CD, CD, White now has this move A4. And it's actually a very deep idea, because normally Black can push B4 and keep the queen side locked up. Here, you have to take, and this gives White a lot of juicy territory on the queen side. So normally when you play, let's say, Knight C3, B5, the same idea is not as effective, because Black will just push B4 with tempo. Wow. Magnus, so many ideas in the kitchen at all times. Okay, whoa. Calm down.
Yeah, this was quite a fascinating opening development. Bishop D2, my God.
Okay, his king is on F2. It's not on the queen side. I thought he was going to castle. Instead, he put his king on F2.
Yeah, but this is the chess of a man up 5 games and very easily could have been up 6 and didn't lose when his internet disconnected. So, yeah, but now what? Okay, you put the king on F2, Danya. You can't move a single pawn in front of your king, though.
Isn't that the goal of chess? Once the king is put on F2, the rest of the moves play themselves, and the chess speaks for itself.
Yes, it does. With occasional posts on Twitter and so on, but
yeah, to explain the logic behind your moves. B4 by Magnus, trying to expand on the queen side. He wants A4 and B5. Big issue for Minh is D4 is never as effective as it looks, because White just goes E4.
Okay, yeah, this is really A4 now. Why not? A4 just
Bishop A7 though. I think that's Minh's idea. That's a
B5.
That's a really pretty maneuver.
Then B5, Knight D4. I mean, of course, oh, he just goes B5 straight away.
Yeah, now A takes B5, Bishop takes B5. Hard to define what's going on here. I can't even really tell who's playing for the initiative. I mean, the eval bar seems to think it's Black, but I mean, 0.7 is a totally meaningless evaluation here. It's just unclear. Oh, 95, by the way. 95 might be an issue for White. I just realized.
Well, I'm not going to lie. When you play the way Magnus has played in this game, yeah, I think a lot of things can be issues. It's just a matter of, will Minh have the confidence and the kind of the there's a word to describe being present in the moment, like clairvoyance. Yeah, that's probably a good word. Like, will he find it?
I think you can just make it into one word, the being present in one momentness.
Yes, being present in one moment. There we go. Knight D4 is a nice idea, playing on this pin, and I'm seeing the early signs of a positional masterclass. You know, the pawns control the knights. Magnus will stabilize, but maybe black has enough pressure for now.
Pawns control the knights, or do the knights control the pawns? No, I think the pawns do restrict the knights, especially this one on f3, holding the knight on f6. But the other knight, I think, has more prospects.
Wow.
a4.
Queen d4 doesn't work. Knight d4 doesn't work. Bishop is coming to f2. I'm telling you, we are seeing
right.
the early makings of a positional masterclass.
Minh has to get active here. He's got this small window of opportunity before the gates shut, before Magnus is able to consolidate. And he senses it. Knight d6. He's got to just keep disrupting the coordination of white's pieces. And instead, Magnus just keeps sliding his pieces into the right slots, thwarting any of black's active designs here.
Yeah, b7, d5, all these pawns are going to be liabilities, as the queen is going to come to the queen side. The rook is going to double in the c file. White's king is now just incredibly safe in the Maldives, just enjoying a nice little pool as a living room. And in about 5 to 10 moves, things could get real bad for black. I don't even know what you play here. All the momentum seems to be with white.
And he takes with the rook. I don't think I was the only one. I thought a takes b5 was automatic. And sometimes when you watch Magnus play, some of his decisions, like when he makes them, it starts dawning on you. And you're like, wow, I didn't think about that at all.
Well,
Black loses a pawn.
Yeah. He loses a pawn, and maybe he has counterplay, but I don't know how exactly you're supposed to find it yet. That makes sense, but he's just going to trade the rook.
Compensation, yes, but...
Is he going to take with the bishop? Because if he takes with the queen, he loses a4.
He'll take with the bishop. But then
he's
queen c4. I mean, Minh should not lose this. He's extremely active here. He's got rook b2. He's playing for a win, I think. Knight b4 is a threat.
Rook d6. Stopping what black wants. Maybe a rook d...
Yep.
Maybe h4. Just when in doubt. But knight b4 is a problem. Knight b4 is definitely a problem.
Now, if Magnus wants to bail out, he can play rook b5.
Yes.
And trade the rooks, give up the extra pawn. Shouldn't lose that game. But the time advantage has been frittered away. He spent 30 seconds on this moment. Let's see what he comes up with. Maybe he's just coming to terms with the fact that rook b5 is the most practical move. No, rook c5.
Oh, he's stopping knight b4 because now it loses a rook. Theoretically, he stopped it. Can black play b6? Okay, same kind of concept. Enabling the movement.
Whoa. Careful now.
Rook f.
Oh, rook f2. What?
Yeah, rook f2, yeah.
And queen b6.
Yeah, queen b6.
Oh, my lands.
He just hung. And he just...
Oh.
I mean, he didn't even see it. That's crazy. Yeah, rook b5.
And the tables turn 180 white. And I'll show this after the game because it's about to get into a time scramble. For people panicking, what just happened? I'll show the win there that Minh missed. I also missed it. The blue arrow, of course, the typical know-it-all.
Magnus's webcam is glitching out, man. He's frozen.
2 seconds. He's flagging again.
He's losing again.
And his internet has cost him another game.
Oh, my God.
And now it's becoming an issue for him because, 1 or 2 more games like this, and it's super tilting to lose because of the internet. White is winning in this final position, Levy, with any move. King g1, rook e2. Now, let me quickly take the opportunity to show that rook takes f2 was winning for black in this position. Queen to b6. And maybe the hardest detail is not this. It's the fact that after white defends the rook, now this pawn can be captured. And miraculously, black's king is perfectly safe on this square. White loses the rook in a piece.
I guess if queen c2, it's important to show knight b4 and queen c5 as a...
Oh my gosh. That's also in black's arsenal of ideas, and knight d3. Or rook takes d5, I think, also wins.
Minh has won 2 games because of internet. He has yet to win a game from start to finish. It's actually kind of wild.
Yeah, this is obviously unfortunate, but it's, like you said, it's just part of online chess.
Yep.
And the situation is better than it was in 2016 or 2017. But sometimes if you're traveling, you just cannot You cannot always take care of the unknowns.
That's true. We don't
Even if
actually
you're
know
home.
where Magnus is. Of course, there is the iconic bedroom that he played many events in, but he's clearly not there.
Yeah, but that cam looks like a YouTube video from 2007. That's like me at the zoo.
I mean, that was like 2005. That's a legendary video.
Yep.
And luckily, he still got a 4-game lead. It could get real bad. It really could.
Uh-oh. Oh my goodness. This reminds me of when you had to go to the lobby of the hotel, like those early World Deuce that I played, and stick like a huge internet card into your computer, and to download like one PGN file took like the entire evening. And you go back up to your room.
Man, in I don't know, like some years ago, I visited when they opened the border. I visited Cuba for like a week, and to get internet there, you had to sit on the street outside of a cafe and you had like an hour window to do it. It was pretty fascinating. It was a very fascinating place to visit. Like the food was great. Like it's fascinating, like a time capsule. But you had internet on the street in one little location for an hour, and so. I feel for him, but Minlei's got like gigabyte connection over there. He's doing great, you know.
Oh yeah, he's vibing. He's enjoying every second of this. He gets this break. Oh, Jesus. Aggressive head scratch. A chess player special.
Yeah, Minh has several go-tos. He has the hair twirl. Wasn't he playing against Paravian and they both twirled their hair? That was their thing. So it was a double hair twirl.
There was an iconic photo, right, that went viral. Paravian and Minh are both doing exactly the same thing.
And, okay, I would say, and maybe it's interesting. How would Magnus have converted this position? Maybe we can...
Well, I was pointing out Rook E2, but that's clearly not the move because black can take and go knight takes d5. Okay, the move is... I'm just going to cheat. There's two winning moves. One is to go king g1 and sidestep the pin. This would probably be what Magnus plays because this is very much up his alley. The second move, Levy, is rook to e4. And the knight is now under fire, two different directions. Queen to c3, queen to d4. And black has to start giving up material because everything is falling apart here. Okay, perfect timing.
There it is. There it is. The internet gambit is back. Magnus still has a 4-game lead.
Oh yeah, this. Minh has started to play this against me exclusively in Blitz.
This is a very annoying line, yeah, because it forces a traditional kind of King's Indian player into some weird stuff.
Yeah, this is so in fashion now. Anytime I used to think the King's Indian, white players embraced it. Now they're trying to force the King's Indian player to play d5 or c5. Of course, the point is if black plays d6, you've been move ordered into a perk that's not great for white, but still, even a not great perk is something that a lot of white players would love to get. I think Magnus has maybe not played the right move order here, but we will get one of the main lines here after b4.
Yeah, b4 and bishop b2. It's kind of like a Catalan. It's like a Catalan reversed. But yeah, white gets a lot of easy moves. Guys blitzing quickly. Now what?
Knight d4. Yeah, this is kind of a hedgehog. I've played this with both colors, actually. I've tried this with white, and I've tried this with black, and my conclusion is that the computer always shows equality, but black is a little bit uncomfortable. Lacking space, white has perhaps easier ways to improve the position, and I always mistime the pawn break. I always try to play d5 because that's the sort of traditional wisdom, and it never works out the way I want it to.
It's interesting, though, that Magnus waited for him to move his queen so that taking back on f3 would be a loss of tempo, and yeah, Magnus just busting out all the hedgehog moves. He's not rushing with e6 because it would weaken the d6 pawn, but otherwise he has controlled the queen side. He's going to play on the c file. But then the question is, what happens after he doubles the rooks on the c file? Where do the rest of the pieces go?
Yeah, actually, this is a big issue. b5, and you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. You're giving up a huge square on c5, but you're getting an even huger square on c6. Or not.
Yeah.
Never mind.
And Magnus shuts that down. He's not going to let the knight go there. Maybe a4. What do you play? a4 here? Do you leave the pawn on a3? Do you take on a6? How's that for edgy? Try to play on the b file.
Literally playing on the edge. I would play a4. The issue is that black is going to get his other knight around to c5 very likely. Okay, a4. And, all right, rook c8. There we go.
How about a5? Is that a terrible move? Well, he's not playing it, but I... Like, now a5.
For who?
For white.
For white.
I don't, yeah, I'm trying to... It's probably not going to work out, but... I like to sacrifice other people's pawns.
But otherwise, black could play it, and then a4 is a long-term... It's one of those long-term weaknesses akin to that pawn on b2 early in the match, which you know Magnus is going to get to eventually. Okay, knight c5. He plays it without a5.
Perhaps the final moment. And he takes on a6. Fine. Okay. Now rook b1 is coming. But a4 is hanging.
Also, knight b5 will force the exchange of bishops, which theoretically should be favorable for white. Magnus... I mean, now every time he pauses, I'm afraid that his internet is going to go out. Now you never know if he's actually thinking. Why is he not changing his sitting position?
Yeah. I saw his shoulder twitch. I knew he was still functioning internet-wise. All right. You can play knight b3, by the way, in some positions.
Ooh.
For no reason, but that's how you make the trade.
Someone's frisky.
It's not really necessary, but...
Knight c3. Yeah. Now he's gotten his knight away. I think he's being a little bit too materialistic here. And this could have the opposite effect. He could end up losing both of these pawns in his vain efforts to defend them. Position is equal, probably, but I think white is the one who has to generate some activity. Can black take?
Yeah, rook a1, knight c3. Oops. Maybe there's queen c2? Oh my god.
Where?
I thought knight a4, rook a1, knight c3, queen c2, but there's queen c4, and you can take. Otherwise, the queen is trapped.
I really like those ideas that involve not recapturing a piece. Now, Minh,
yeah, he does it this way. And now he's going to
rook a1,
rook a1, yeah.
rook a8. Magnus is going to try to evacuate this queen. That queen on a6 is the bane of black's existence. But how do you reinforce the pressure on this knight? If you play queen c2, you're walking into all sorts of tactics like e5 and queen takes b5. As usual, I think Magnus is first to the party.
Is there queen c2, e5, knight d6?
Oh.
Maybe there was something
there.
Early
for those lines.
Okay, but now queen b7, and yeah, you hit e4 and you're out of the pin, and now you just hope the internet doesn't disconnect.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Minh trying to stir up some tactics here. Rook takes c4.
Yeah,
intuitively, I wouldn't go for this.
No?
No. But I don't know why.
Yeah, I also don't know why. I don't know why it wasn't a good move. What was... Maybe rook a3 and rook g3 there was like...
Do you want to know the actual reason? It's ridiculous.
Okay.
Can I show it?
Yeah,
It was... You're not going to believe this. It was knight d6.
What?
And knight f5. A double knight sacrifice. And then rook takes d6. And amazingly,
wow.
And this is the irony, you've spent the entire game targeting this a4 knight, but you're actually going after the other knight, misdirection. And then you're taking f6, and white can give perpetual check several different ways. How did he miss this? I mean, it's low-level chess here.
Yeah, just sacrifice all your pieces.
Elementary,
Bozo.
My dear Watson. yeah, come on.
Yeah, instead of that,
times.
instead of that, Magnus is playing rook d8. And he's still moving, which means his internet is still alive. So he's... Yeah,
I'm holding my breath like every move. And trust me, Magnus is too.
Yeah, rook d3. Minh looking for some attacks. Minh should just be a good sport. You know, yesterday we saw disgusting amounts of good sportsmanship from the players. Minh should just resign in a slightly worse position so Magnus's internet doesn't disconnect for a third time. How about that? Just...
Oh, he's done it. But this time out of desperation. And it has a slightly different effect.
Yeah, now Magnus's knight c3, knight e4 looks just absolutely beautiful. And
oh, yeah.
Or that, yeah.
Knight e4? No, apparently. Oh, queen h6. Oh, Jesus. I mean, not that does that much. I think even after king g8, black is winning, which just illustrates how futile white's attempts at counterplay are here.
Now white's got nothing. Black's king is...
I mean, if this was Hikaru versus Jospin, I think we'd be we'd be assigning the practical advantage to white.
Yeah, queen d7, queen holds everything, rook holds everything. G4 is a great move. I like G4 a lot, actually. But first of all, there's positions you can even take when the knight is no longer protected, and then you replace the pawn with another pawn. But this is... Oh, gosh. It's not over yet. Magnus's internet's still holding up.
Yes.
And there it is. He wins.
Got total domination. The fact that he's still up by 5 points just tells you everything you need to know. But at this point, he wants to build up as much of a cushion as he can. Because especially in the bullet, I mean, if you drop a couple of games, it suddenly gets close. Okay, it's a London system, but Magnus is the one who plays a London.
He plays a London. Minh plays queen b6 and c4. That is... I've also never seen that. That is some sort of gambit giving up b2. b2 is still hanging. It's still hanging. I guess he's got knight d5? Is that like the point?
Gosh. Oh!
I mean, I guess rook b1 is also satisfactory, but...
And it's the sort of thing when you face this against... When you face a regular GM in this line, you'll spend time calculating queen takes b2, maybe call their bluff. With Magnus, you're not even thinking about it. You just know that he knows it.
Yeah, guy played c4 in 2 seconds, you know. He so now Minh's got to figure out what to do here. I mean, okay, you can take on c4 and it's just kind of a queen's gambit-esque position. DC castle.
Yeah. But it's uncomfortable. Again, black always suffers in the queen's gambit accepted from the French bishop on c8. And eventually, and the other problem is sometimes the placement of black's queen. It can be very vulnerable at the right moment. You know, knight a4, knight b5 ideas can loom large. I really hate these types of positions for black. I understand it's sort of equal, but I mean, you need to be ultra, ultra precise here. He gives up the bishop pair. You're not going to hang on to this extra pawn levy, I think.
No, and I
think would be awesome.
I think the last 2 moves kind of surprised him. I mean, BC is I would never even consider. I mean, maybe you look at queen c3, knight d5, but
yeah.
Magnus castling instead of taking the pawn, and now playing BC instead of taking the pawn, and he may delay another move. I don't think.
Yes.
This is like expert stuff. And he might even play knight d2 at some point instead of even taking with the bishop, but maybe now we take.
Maybe the time is right, because if you overcook it, you know, eventually black will play b5. But, you know, basketball analysts talk about this concept, the intangibles. It's the things that don't make it onto the stat board. But they define elite players. It's the stuff they do that you might not see unless you're sort of a inveterate watcher of the sport or a fan of the sport. It's the same with Magnus's play. There might be less flashy combinations and sacrifices, but he does so many of these small things that are just so impressive to. And look at what he's doing.
Rook d5,
rook g5, and rook g6. I mean, come on. And why is this a thing? Because of him delaying bishop takes c4 levy, because he restricted the development of black's queen side, and now it's going to be mate before move 20.
Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. Yeah, delayed it, got Minh to play e5 to liberate that bishop on c8 that you discussed is the problem. And
showstopper.
Game's over. Rook g5, g6. You simply, again, 4 pieces pointed directly at the king, like Kasparov said, and you can sacrifice the house on g6, or more like just the rook. And Minh is probably talking to himself about how he even allowed this. I don't think he's calculating. He will probably play it out. Maybe he'll resign. I don't know. But
rook g5.
Yep.
Or rook h5.
And yeah, he just resigns.
Wow, rook h5, g6, queen takes g6 would have been a sick mate, by the way.
How was their mate there? HG?
Should I show it really? Can I pull it up really quickly here?
Yeah. Rook g6, king h7, rook g7, king h6.
No, but D3. But wait, which line are you talking about? Let's Oh, I think there might be a break.
There is a break, I think. Yes.
Okay, but all the more reason to show rook h5 was not what he played. Rook g5 is
rook h5. Sorry, yeah. I thought you meant rook g5 and a queen sack.
So here you have queen g6, but yeah, g6 you have queen takes g6.
Oh my
God. These flashy combinations exist when you have pieces to spare, and you have pieces to spare when you've got all of your pieces pointed at the enemy king. It's a miniature. It's another win for Magnus, and he's put his internet problems in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, until the next disconnect. But for now, he can keep winning games in flashy style and giving them away because of the internet. But he will continue to have a 4-5 game lead. And this was a very, very impressive game where I think his hesitation to take the pawn on c4 kind of confused Minh a little bit. And he tried to play e5 and then e4, and he just never got fully developed. Magnus struck, and just a great game.
Well, he holds a commanding lead, and Minh has really one last chance. He needs to be perfect, and he needs to take this break to reset. So we'll take this break to mention that if you're watching the screen without subscribing on Twitch, you are missing out, because not only does your subscription make our streams possible, it also unlocks exclusive new emotes for every event, plus access to exclusive break time content during the show. You can even use your Prime sub to claim a free subscription. So use !subscribe in chat to level up and support the show. We hope you're enjoying the show. Everybody met Minh is enjoying the show. We'll be back with more SCC action as Magnus tries to bring the point home on the other side of this break.
Looking for some cool merch or a gift for that person who loves chess? We've got you covered in our all-new merch store, literally from head to toe. Whether it's a hot date or just hanging out, it's always chess time somewhere. Just ask Mittens. Okay, well, Mittens is just a stuffed toy, so maybe don't ask Mittens. But you can check it all out at chess.com/shop right now.
We're here in Casablanca for this special tournament. You'll be playing games from interesting positions from historical games. So this is a challenge. We want to give you the players to see if you know your classics and also more modern games. And as you see, we have switched the normal pieces out with checkers pieces. It's the 5th position. Black won the game.
Okay, no chance. I need a hint.
Okay, so the last move was pawn takes e3.
Okay, so this is obviously it's a pawn, obviously it's a rook, obviously it's a rook, and white resigned here.
Okay, this is my game with Vladdy.
Correct. Very good. Remember?
Game 5.
Yeah, this is Hikaru Nakamura from the World Championship match in 2008.
Correct. Very good.
Yeah, I just have no idea. No idea on this one.
Okay, so this is Kramnik Anam, 2008 match.
Oh, from the match. Ah, okay. It was a Slav game. Okay.
Black won this game as well after his last move.
Those C pawns and the A pawn over there, I'm thinking of that famous game where the triple. Yeah, there's no triples.
No, it's not my game with Topolov. That would be embarrassing. No.
I'll need a hint. No idea at all. Start.
You can either get Black's last move, or you can know the position of White's king, or the placement of the White king.
Well, I'm assuming the king is here or here, so I'm not sure that helps a lot.
Okay, so the White king is on h4.
Okay, did not expect that.
I never considered that. I just assumed king was on g2 and that's a rook on h4 because it couldn't be a knight and it couldn't be a thing.
Well, the king is actually on h4.
Oh, so then it's Krasenko Nakamura.
Correct. And you know the year?
2008?
Close, 2007.
Ah, 7.
Barcelona. Okay, very good. It's Krasenko Nakamura from 2007.
Anyway, I'll see if Hikaru finds it.
I mean, this is obviously my game, but I'm trying to remember where the pieces are, so I can at least give you the right move. Yeah, this is my game against Krasenko from the Barcelona Casino tournament in 2007.
But you had everything correct.
Yeah,
that was impressive.
Okay, it was a bishop move at the end of it.
Very good.
Ah, okay. Yeah. No, because I was gonna say I thought the king was here, so I assumed it was some Kasparov game or something against Karpov, that style. But yeah, once you said king on h4, it's
For once, it was a good hint.
Yeah.
Chess Championship is back as Magnus Carlsen takes on Minh Lee, and he has built a commanding lead despite some internet problems. His form has been excellent. The winner of this match takes on Arjun Erigaisi, who defeated Young Krzysztof Duda yesterday. And the winner of this match, well, Levy, I don't think there is much of a question about who that's going to be, but there's 20 minutes for Minh to change that narrative.
There is still time remaining on the clock, but it's very quickly turning into a situation kind of similar to yesterday's match, Hikaru versus Jose, in the sense that you just want to score a respectable amount of points, you want to put up a good fight. And I have to say that Minh has been fighting, but down the stretch it has been Magnus who is more accurate in a lot of different endgames. And as we just saw recently, he's also capable of playing a 20-move absolute demolition job if you give him the resources to do so. But we'll see if Minh is able to win a game, I would say, organically, right? Because actually 2 of his wins are due to internet outages in the location of Magnus Carlsen, and that's unfortunate, but ultimately I am rooting for him to win a couple of games, kind of start to finish, and seeing what can happen. By the way, they already busted out like 10 moves. I didn't even realize they already got going.
They got going, and a weird kind of Slav. I don't understand how that bishop made its way from... I don't realize how that bishop made its way from c8 to f5. Did it jump over the e6 pawn?
Oh, they don't have dark squared bishop, so I guess it was a London, yeah.
It was. So I'm glad we missed the first like 6 moves.
Yeah, the bishops are just.
I want to see any more of that.
And well, I mean, this is Minh specialty. He plays this opening all the time, and Magnus opting for this type of approach.
a5 is an excellent move, setting up queen to b4. You would love a dark squared bishop on d6 right now. That would be awesome. But Minh is kind of out of gas here. And it's not enough to prevent your opponent from castling. You actually have to develop an attack on the king. What does white do? Minh is stuck here.
It's a very curious.
Ooh.
Queen, yeah. Staring contest.
Exactly. Magnus is going to castle. He's not going to be the first to flinch.
No, of course not. But there are sometimes positions that doubling these pawns for the opponent is good. Yeah, h6 is just sort of a waiting move. Now he wants to play a3, I think, maybe in some positions. Wow, king e7. That's awesome. That's amazing.
I mean, he's already preparing for the endgame by moving his king up. But Minh could pull the rug out from under him. If the circumstances were right, he would play queen to d1. Of course, it's unthinkable here because the king is still quite safe, even in the center. But I really like moves like that. They're, you understand why they're played when they're played, but to actually be the one to play them, you have to be Magnus Carlsen to not feel like a fool.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there are qualified members of the chat who would put their king on e7 like this, and also it wouldn't be totally stupid. I mean, there's a difference between doing it on the 2nd move and the 20th move, like in this game. A lot of things are possible here. The center is deadlocked. We have queens coming off the board in a moment, and also there are no bishops to attack the king on e7. So certain criteria has to be met. I'm not preaching to you. I am, of course, preaching to the audience. Like, why can he play it, but I can't? But yeah, it's kind of a do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you can play it. I mean, I do play moves like that. They just have a lower success rate. I like the way Minh is handling this endgame. He played f3. He can't quite play e4 just yet, but feels like Magnus is kind of at a standstill on the queen side.
What do you do with white? Because if you play c5, Magnus will move the knight to d7 and prepare b6 and also prepare e5, and that's a terrible proposition. So, yes. But if you take on d5, I mean, black could take with any piece. Honestly, everything looks good. So yeah, g4 is great. Whoa. And now you're going to exploit the e4 square. Oh, I call this Magnesian. This is the Magnesian school of chess.
Magnesian. Yeah, better than Carlsonian.
Oh, this is now e4 is just a huge target. And okay, I like the outside pawn though. I mean, the outside pass pawn is a good thing for white.
And magnesium, I think when the next element on the periodic table is discovered,
Yeah,
we know who's got dibs on it.
Magnesium. There we go. Magnesium, they're related.
Well, Carlsonian is the name of an institution in New York. Okay, that's the Smithsonian, but close enough.
Yeah. Yes.
The
also
Knight
in
has
Washington,
done
D.C.,
its
I
job.
think.
Wait, is that where the original Smithsonian is?
I don't know, but I do know that knight d6 and knight e4 is on the way. And again, if white plays c5, it's well, actually, if there was ever a moment to play c5, it was when the knight was on c8. But now, knight f5, knight h5, it's all very unpleasant.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how quickly he's able to impose his will on the position. He's gotten white to play this undesirable move c5, releasing the tension on the d5 pawn, and now e5 is inevitable, Levy. The question is when, and he doesn't have to put a rook on e8 to play e5. You can play e5 immediately, technically a sacrifice, but after d takes e5, knight d7, I'm mesmerized by the way that he controls the board. The pawn on a4, we saw this in the first game. This is a King's Indian idea, just stopping any further progress. He could play rook b8 and b6. I mean, the sky is the limit here for black.
Rook b8, b6, you start thinking about moves like knight h5, because after knight h5, I have absolutely no idea where you're going to move a piece, but you don't have to play knight h5. You can formulate here, like the knight on e2 wants to go to f4, right? Then the bishop wants to get out. So maybe you just play knight h5, completely shutting that down.
And he's got to make a move. Okay, there we go.
Okay, he goes for e5. It seems to be wrong, but it's very human. e4 is a nice counterstrike.
Knight d3 is threatened. The center opens up. Knight f4 will create a knight cube. But knight f4, there was knight takes h4. There was a weird discovered tactic as Magnus is about to sink his teeth into the b3 square.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Rook is trapped. Trapped rook?
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Minh's losing all his pieces here.
Rook b8, just rook b8. And knight, you don't even have to take on c1. You probably should, but...
It's over.
Oh, man. Oh. And I think Minh must have been delayed there, yeah? He must have just been... Because he didn't just realize his rook was hanging.
You know, it's like those movies that have dubbing where you see their mouth moving, but the subtitle text has ended. Like, you know, let's go fight it out.
Yeah, they're already fighting. They're already fighting, though. Yeah. I don't think Minh just realized his rook was trapped, but...
It's over. Rook d4 check, just the cherry on top. Magnus just doesn't relax, right? He doesn't decrease the intensity of the pressure just because a lot of moves win. And you really have to appreciate the way he does that.
Yeah, just fantastic. I mean, what more to say? Look, at the end of the day, there's a term that the kids use, and it's called glazing. And when we sit here for hours, that's kind of what it sounds like we're doing. But
what does that mean?
Honestly,
installing Windows. I'm pretty sure that's not what that means.
Yeah, and whatever else it says on Urban Dictionary, we don't want to read that out loud. I don't know, Donnie. I don't know. I just scroll Instagram reels and I get all up to date on the slang. You know, like we had slang back in the day, and the kids now have slang, and you know.
Okay, the definition, like the street definition, is actually not bad. It says when you're meat riding someone or sucking up to them, when you excessively compliment someone to the point where it's just cringe and annoying. I think it's important to point out that this happens maybe with newer fans and players like Magnus and Hikaru, where, you know, you misinterpret assessments of real, you know, objective assessments of their strengths as glazing, as you put it. But
yeah,
you know, you got to call it when you see it, and you just don't get this level of mastery like ever.
No, it's amazing, and you get it in so many different structures and openings and so on. And this one is this is a really nice queen's pawn game, and well, not after you play c4, but I thought not if you do it this way. I thought he was going to long castle, but you know, fine, king on f1, and I don't know what the miss there was. Wait, did he have bishop b2 DC? Can we back up a moment?
Which move?
Like just a moment ago. Just if we just back up to king f1, bishop b2.
Yeah, he could have won a pawn here for no compensation.
What? He just didn't see that? He just missed DC?
Yeah, Minh, this is the problem. He just doesn't. At some point, you stop believing that your opponent is capable of blundering. There's nothing more to calculate. Knight d2 actually walks into c3. You lose the game. So Minh, he's overlooking these moments. Every chance you have to exploit against Magnus. It's really as simple as that. Now, Black is actually still fine here. I maybe would even prefer Black, but I think I'm wrong because it's not clear where to put your king. If you castle kingside, there's h5. I mean, this isn't looking good.
No, it's not. But knight d6, yeah, knight d6. The bishop is bishop f1 is absurd, by the way. Like, again, we just get used to how these guys play chess, right? So yeah, bishop f1, bishop d3. Bishop f1 is crazy. Would you play bishop f1 in a game?
No.
I mean, you just don't think that way. You think I need to go forward. What bishop f1? How can anybody play bishop f1? And he's just defending c4. That's what he's doing.
Generally, I'm okay. I'm pretty decent at predicting at least the spirit of the moves. But with Magnus, sometimes I have no idea even what side of the board he's about to play on. And I'm like, whoa, he's playing on the queen side. I was positive he's going to prepare h5. So his vision of the board is just so different from, my conventional read on it. King g2, another move I don't think I would ever play, Levy.
Yeah, I mean, in this position, you look at c5, h5, right? The rook moved from the h file. You got to go, but he's preparing that the rook will defend the rook instead of the king defending the rook, so that he can always take back, right? And again, he's just passing the ball back. You just hit the ball back. That's it, and let your opponent make a big decision.
Bishop b5, as usual. I thought bishop b5 takes d7 and sticking the knight on e5 was the path forward. But again, bishop d3. I think he's trying to use this rook in order to harass this knight out of d7.
Yeah, I mean, he's just going to the, 7th rank isn't coming. Queen b7, rook a6. At a certain point also, just in every endgame, you can sack on d7 and play knight e5 and just call it a day. But maybe at some point h5, just keep him on his toes. Definitely a position with what is it, carte blanche? You have just you're able to do whatever you want, or is that blank slate? I think that's blank slate. That's not really.
I think you need to save that for the Paris finals.
Yeah.
Perfectly suited for the atmosphere. Okay. Yeah, this is getting tough for Minh. I mean, he's down by 7. It's becoming a blowout. And the way Magnus is controlling these games, once you miss that initial chance, right? D takes c4 wasn't played. You feel like the ship has sailed. The opportunity train has passed.
Yeah, but how do we break through here? What's the move? Maybe rook a7, take, h5, gh, g6. And just queen e7 at the end. Something like that. Just get in with the queen. And that's the way you infiltrate. I don't know.
In general, you're playing for mate. I agree. Unless you trade the rooks, then you're playing for the e5 square. Now, it's amazing. Rook a7, rook b7. Black's rook just keeps pursuing its vis-a-vis up the board. It's pretty frustrating. It looks like all the pieces are in place, but where is the breakthrough?
I think that line is actually quite good, but you don't have to take on g6. I don't know if we have an analysis board, but if we play rook a7, rook b7, take,
yeah.
h5 take, g6 take, queen e7, that looks really nice, actually, I think, for white. But you don't have to take on g6.
Actually, that's a super important point. Like you said, king g6, queen e7. You can see the eval bar shoot up. White is winning. Knight e5 is coming in. This is collapsing. But king to f6, sidestepping.
I just realized, yeah.
And holding e7.
It's very important. Otherwise, it's probably just a winning line. But nice.
Uh-oh.
What happened?
Knight d6, rook a7.
Oh, did he hang rook b7, queen d6 or something? Some crazy line?
Queen d6 definitely white is white is probably winning after queen d6. But Magnus playing it simple, easy does it, bishop b5, crusher. Yeah. Takes a knight e5. That is the deciding idea. Yeah. Levy, king g8, queen e7. This is ugly.
No, this
is really ugly.
Oh man, you don't have a move. Straight up can't move a piece.
Wow.
Maybe queen a8 also was the thing, but
it's over. He's got him packaged away, gift wrapped, paralyzed.
Bishop
down on
C6
time.
is, yeah, Bishop A6. And...
A6.
Oh.
No, there's no perpetual. No. Yeah, not even close. Maybe stalemate, if not for the F-pawn. No, this is pipe dream. Minh resigns. And it's an 8-point lead that Magnus has opened up here with 8 minutes left in the 3+1 segment.
Do you think today Magnus is playing out of his mind? Or do you think Minh is underperforming?
I think both. I mean, I think Minh, at some point, maybe in the middle of the 5-minute portion, just lost some of that mojo. And Minh is definitely not as tactically sharp as I'm used to him being. I mean, I'm used to him seeing all of those little, traps and zaps, like D takes C4 in the previous game. But he's been blundering uncharacteristically, but also Magnus is in fantastic form today.
Yeah, I was gonna say yesterday felt like Jose underperformed. Of course, Hikaru was his usual self, playing great defensive and resilient chess, but it felt Jose missed a couple of chances. But today it just feels anything Magnus touches turns to gold. Any position he touches. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we hold him to an extremely, like his baseline form, his baseline level of performance is already elite by definition, but today was like an elite version of elite. He's made very, very few outright blunders, maybe like 1 or 2 in 13 games, which is crazy. His conversion has been flawless almost every time. Levy and his endgame play, as usual, this is like the constant in a lot of his matches, has just been has been superb.
Yeah, but when I mean, you look back at yesterday's match, you start thinking, granted, Hikaru played like a bunch of Scandinavians, very like risky openings, but you look at today and the amount of times that Minh had a clear chance either to have an advantage or not just totally get just outplayed like in some of these games, it's less than 5, I would argue. It's really less than 5. The biggest one was in game 1. Very first game.
Yeah. Now this game actually Minh is playing really, really nicely.
Yeah, this is a vintage way to dominate the Stonewall structure.
Yep, the 91 knight d3 maneuver you just saw there. That's in the old Soviet textbooks from the 60s. That's the way you're supposed to play position, but okay. The Stonewall wouldn't be the Stonewall if it was easy to bring down. You can do all of the things you're recommended to do, and Black is still in business.
Yeah, this is one of the major ideas. Actually, Magnus really likes the Stonewall. In fact, he has some ancient course, I remember. I don't even know on what website, like on the Stonewall. And but here the light squared bishop on e8 is a bit catastrophic. He's just going to go attack. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, you can find it on like the Wayback Machine.
This is now you have to take on g3 here with Black. If you play the move h3, you should be suspended from chess. But he's gonna play it. Like, you know what I mean? He's gonna. But yeah, you probably need to take on g3 and go for an attack on the h file. But if he plays h3, I'm gonna lose my mind a little bit because I don't even fathom that move. Now I'm scared.
No, I agree. Now I'm also scared. Now I'm starting to make a case. Maybe I could see h3 and the knight e4 being a thing. I think you're safe in assuming he's not going to play it. At least for now. Now you're safe.
Yeah, well, once king f2 happens, then you start not wanting to play hg because suddenly rook h1, and maybe he'll leave the pawn there. But
yeah, but BA.
Yeah, now the queen
back
has to go
the queen
back.
goes to c7, but the b file. The point of BA is not to win a pawn per se. It's also to open up prospects on the queen side, and you can go knight b3, but you do not want to give up the e4 square like that. Queen b4 is an excellent move. Rook takes a5. Black can play. White is obviously better here. I mean, clearly Minh has tremendous pressure on Black's position.
Knight b3, a4, a5, then maybe at some point, maybe just a4, so the knight doesn't go to b5, and it's a position you wish you could stop the game and say, I'm better. Please just let me win, What? It's the best move!
That's some evil humor there.
What?
Mind-blowing.
How is it the best move?
And this is the best one. Knight takes c4. I can understand that a little bit more, but still, it's a very hard move to play because knight c4 DC, you're giving up b7. But I guess you just get a lot of activity here. There it is.
Now, I'm just going to say the game changed a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Since, it's not the same. Of course, people will see h3 and say, you should be suspended from chess and whatever. But the queen side opened. So rather than black playing on two flanks, black now goes to the queen side. But it is still a very funny moment that I said if you play h3, you should be suspended.
But no, people are DC, by the way. DC and
DC, and you can't take because of b5. Yeah, Minh is falling apart, yeah.
Now, 6 games later, Magnus is going to play h3 in like some pawn endgame. And people are going to be, oh, you said he was going to be suspended from chess. Yeah, the circumstances have changed completely. Now black is attacking on the queen side. That is the main thing that's changed.
Yes. It's also important to point out that in every endgame, if the white king walks over to the queen side now, black has knight h5 or knight e4, takes on g3 ideas, and the h-pawn will queen. So, yes, it's half copium, half the game has changed a lot.
You know what's gonna happen is knight b6, knight c5 is a vintage exchange sacrifice, and black is just going to get an unholy amount of domination on the queen side. It's just crazy that now black is the one calling the shots on the side of the board where, that white was lording over just a couple moves ago.
What's amazing is also that even if black gets that and gets a pawn on b5, the bishop on f7 is just a big pawn, but black is still much better.
Yeah, it's doing its job. The bishop is defending the base of the pawn chain. So it's actually an integral cog in the machine. Minh doesn't see a move. We were talking about knight b6, knight d5. We're not just talking about it. It's happened.
And there it is. Yeah, knight d5. And Minh down to 6 seconds. How is the queen not trapped? Or is it?
Knight e4 doesn't work because it gives away the c4 pawn in the end. That's the off-ramp. So Magnus now can move his rook.
Yep.
And white has no threats here. Everything is under... It's a jam-packed situation on the queen side. If you move the rook levy knight e4, in response to knight takes c4 will trap the queen. That's what Minh missed.
Yes. And knight d5 just bolster... And what was the plan here? That was the plan. The plan was resignation.
Whew.
And we have 1 minute to go. We will have one final game. And Magnus has a 9-game lead.
Now it's time to bring out the fun openings.
Oh yes, King's Gambit on the board, and this is why we love him, because he plays every single opening. He doesn't repeat almost any time, and he's allowing
knight e3,
queen h4, king to e2, the gangster King's Gambit.
That's the Steinitz. I don't know exactly. I think it's called the Vienna variation, which is or Vienna Gambit, which is very confusing because there's also the Vienna game. Which is totally different and a little bit more kosher. Wilhelm Steinitz was an ardent proponent of this line. Of course, now with modern engines, a lot of Steinitz's assertions, and Steinitz felt very strongly about what he was. He was like, I'm going to recommend this line, and if you dare dispute it, I'm going to fight you. And if you don't believe me, I can bring out some quotes. Stockfish is like, yeah, I'd love to fight you, Wilhelm.
But these positions are, especially in Blitz, isn't there like bishop f3, king f3?
And white is better. And this guy, Wilhelm Steinitz, he became world champion for a reason.
And white, I mean, listen, King's Gambit, best case scenario for white is 2 bishops with the center. Like
King's Gambit, you're gambiting your king, almost.
Yeah, this is crazy. Just wild stuff. And when you're down 9 games and facing a King's Gambit, you don't remember all the moves. And yeah, Minlei's just blundering the f7 pawn, I guess, because if rook d7, there's some sort of e5 and just crashing down the middle of the board.
Oh, knight g5. And blunders beget blunders, and now it's full on tilt. It's a double-digit lead. When there was a 3 or 4 point lead, we looked at Magnus's results in the last year, Levy, and I said, these 11-point leads, you start wondering, how is it possible to lose that many games? Well, this is how. He's not even doing anything particularly bad. Magnus just gets more and more confident. There's a little bit of tilt, and it's a very, very toxic combination that causes you to just start dropping game after game. And you feel for minutes. It's a painful situation to be in.
Yeah, what more to say? I mean, I'm not going to say anything anything wise here. It's really brutal. You have a timer. You have to play that amount of games, or rather that amount of time. And one guy is just in excellent form today, and the other is slowly slipping into a huge realm of sadness.
I'm surprised he didn't. I mean, this is beyond resignable. C3.
Yeah, C3, and but we knew this was happening. I mean, we knew it was happening when Magnus already got the better position from the opening. You know what I mean? It's just he played the opening, which has some risk, and zero of the risk was utilized by the other side, and he kind of got everything he wanted. And you never play a King's Gambit in game one of a Speed Chess Championship match unless you're
Jan Nepomniachtchi, maybe.
yeah, exactly. Unless you literally made a course on it, but you start out stable in these matches, and by the second hour of play, you know who's going to win probably. And if you don't know, then you still don't play a King's Gambit.
Now, people asking, like, does Minh have to play? Here's the thing. If you're Minh, you understand that this was a possibility, and you did your best. You want to play the bullet. Every opportunity to play Magnus is a treat for any other GM. I mean, you don't know how many of those opportunities you're going to get. At least speaking for myself, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I really think that you have to see the bigger picture here if you're the underdog. This is a great chance to learn, and it's fun. It gives you a rush to play the greatest player of all time. It's just an experience that's memorable, period, even if in the moment you don't realize that, because the pain is real of losing a match with this margin.
That's absolutely right. And probably have to remember that it's not even, and Magnus wins there, and the 3+1 segment is over. The score is 12.5 to 2.5, and he's the GOAT for a reason. But right now he's stretching like a cat. So
I mean, they both are performing some wild gesticulate gymnastics after that game. But the gymnastics on the board are being performed exclusively by Magnus. Minh, it's 13.5 to 2.5. It's an 11-point lead after the 3-minute portion. It was a complete and total blowout. Levy, there isn't much to say other than, I mean, domination every stage of the game from the very first moves of this match.
Yeah, and I believe that now we're supposed to do a game review. I mean, we could select one of like 10 different games. I will let you take it away. I was planning to order some lunch after the 3+1 segment is over. I did not expect it to be a 10-game lead, but I mean, Magnus is an amazing form, and Minh's got to get a few games back in Bullet, man. Just have some fun with it, you know?
Well, Magnus is having Minh lead for lunch. You should definitely get some lunch of your own. I'm going to take a game review here. The shortest game of this match is a good epitome of the extent to which Magnus Carlsen has dominated. This game started off as a London system. Magnus has the white pieces, and very quickly, he's able to get positions that he knows better. C4, an obscure move, but a very dangerous move. Queen takes B2, apparently is too dangerous. After knight b to d2, white gets fantastic tactical compensation. The pawn is still hanging, but Minh dares not capture it. Instead, Minh Lee brings his bishop out. Logical moves. But suddenly, black gets pretty uncomfortable here. This is a bad bishop on c8. White gets a slight advantage, and Magnus prosecutes it beautifully. Most people here, first of all, would take back with the queen. This would have allowed black to eliminate the bishop pair, so Magnus takes with the pawn. Then the vast majority would take on c4. But no, Magnus first brings his pieces into position, makes it even harder for black to develop his queenside, and after e5, the situation goes from bad to worse. Bishop g5, and here Minh Lee blunders with e4, trying to get this knight to move. That would blunder the bishop. But after the mutual trade, rook d5 is the crusher that instantly triggers resignation. Black loses on the spot after queen b6, rook g5. The pawn on g7 is under fire, and g6 gets mated in absolutely brutal and violent fashion with queen takes g6. This is how Magnus won games. He won games in a variety of different ways, but the fact remains it is an 11-point deficit going into the bullet. And Levy, I hope you settled on a restaurant for lunch. It's just a dominant performance today. There's only so many ways in which you can describe it.
Absolutely. And that was a great game to show some of the opening flair, some of the middle game conversions. I think Magnus uses some of these matches as just a chance to play different structures and different middle games and test his creativity. He's been good defensively. He's been good offensively. He's been good tactically. He's been good positionally. He's been good in the end game. How do you beat him? Like, what do you...
Yeah, I think you're running out of
if you're in the corner of the boxer who is opposite him today, what do you tell him? What do you tell him? Like, what's the motivation?
I mean, you just have to try to make this closer. You have to appreciate the chance that you have. But Minh is a bullet beast. I mean, anybody who's watched online chess knows that. He will give his best. He always does that. He is a fighter and a gentleman. So we've got more chess to watch and then another match after this one. But first things first, it's time for a short break. You're watching the Speed Chess Championship as Magnus Carlsen completes a total demolition in round one. We'll be back with the final segment of his match on the other side of this break.
Looking for new ways to enjoy chess? Check out our schedule of chess.com community events today. Mondays, play Rapid Opening Roulette and expand your opening repertoire with a new opening each month. Tuesdays, compete against other Untitled players in Untitled Tuesday. Battle your way to the top in Arena Kings on Wednesdays. And finish the week off each Saturday with the blistering Community Bullet Brawl. All happening in the Community Club on chess.com.
There's a shortcut for sizing up any chess position.
Chess structures is how we understand chess quick, and how can you evaluate a complicated position in a second or two.
And giving you the tools to come up with a winning plan.
What I see here is not a weak pawn on d4. One can feel tremendous energy from the white side. Well, we have rooks in open files. My knights have great squares where they can jump to. Even this one can maybe jump further. My bishop maybe on b3, maybe on d3. You will not see just 12 pawns on a chessboard. No, you will start to see that this is a landscape. And it's a landscape where you can sort of see the hills, or rather the flow of energy.
In any opening you play.
Welcome to the chapter about the Isolani, Caro-Kann formation, the Slav formation, Carlsbad structure, Stonewall structure, King's Indian structure type 1, type 2, the hedgehog structure.
And you can learn it all before your beard grows too long. Grandmaster Peter Heine Nielsen presents Chess Structures, a Grandmaster Guide. Try it for free on Chessable at chessable.com/structures.
welcome back to the Speed Chess Championship. I am Levy Rosman and Jim Daniel Darnitsky covering the first match of today's doubleheader for you. It's Magnus Carlsen, and he is doing Magnus Carlsen things, Levy, but even by his standards, it's been a really impressive match against Minh.
It has. He's on fire. He is dominating every single phase of the game. He's dominating on the clock. He's dominating in the end game, in the middle game. But we do have to remember, last year, he did the same thing in the first round, and that was against Fabiano Caruana, right? So this is not unlike him to show up to this event and make his presence known right away. I think we sort of held out hope that Minh, with his Blitz and Bullet experience, would be a worthy competitor, but it has been Magnus the whole way today.
Well, Magnus will face, assuming he holds on to this 11-point lead, he will face Arjun Erigaisi, who had a really difficult journey yesterday. Neither player was in particularly sharp form, which makes Arjun's win all the more impressive. He was actually trailing for most of the bullet, but a last-second comeback allowed him to advance to the quarterfinals. It'll be a fascinating matchup, and Nepo and Noterbeck will face off later today. The winner of that match on the other side of the bracket will face none other than Hikaru Nakamura. Well, the internet problems seem to be behind him. At this point, you'll need an internet outage like every game, and even that might not be enough, Levy. I mean, even hypothetically, I don't know if they'll have time to play 11 games. Probably not.
No, probably not. Also, it's a 10-game lead, not 11. So let's...
Oh, it is a 10-game lead. Okay.
Yes, let's give Minh, his realistic chances. A friendly reminder for
what, here.
Yes, for what's at stake. It's a spot in the quarterfinals, and after that, it's a ticket to Paris, which is awesome. That's what's at stake. After that, you earn $3,000 for winning the match, and then there's a split based on a win percentage. So Minh has a couple of opportunities here to win back some hundreds of dollars, which is, I mean, it's not too shabby. Bullet is underway. Here we go.
Yep. Reminds me, I got to get my tickets to Paris. It's going to be a fun event. I'm really looking forward to it. It's short but sweet. It's going to be an action-packed couple of days as the final four men standing in the SCC will move to France's capital to see the Eiffel Tower and hopefully also win the SCC.
For now, yeah. France is not one of those places that has changed their capital to somewhere extremely obscure. It's still Paris.
Like Lyon. Yeah, I had to double check that in my mind. I'm like, wait.
Yeah, because you sometimes, especially in the US and the States, it's like a capital of random state is God knows where.
Yeah, but Nevada is like Reno? No. Las Vegas? No. Carson City.
Yeah. It's one of the few with the word city in the capital. How's that for some trivia for the audience?
Really? Oklahoma City? Probably the only other one. Salt Lake City?
Salt Lake City. You start racking them up. There's quite a few.
Sacramento City. And New York, not New York City.
No, not New York City. No, we have Albany. That's our
Albany, center of civilization.
Yes. Yeah, you can play that game in your head while we commentate the bullet. I mean, we need our material to prepare for this bullet segment.
That's right.
Magnus just firing moves off. Slightly worse. The pawn play is a bit frozen here, and the queen side could be a liability in the long run, but A3 probably, yeah, he had to play A3.
Oh, yeah, I mean, a completely game-changing, match-changing move like A3 was worth pointing out with the blue arrow.
Yes. I mean, I did think about A3. I thought maybe he has to, but now Magnus is just a pawn up. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, just...
Yeah, I mean, 1+1, I think he likes the increment in bullet.
Yeah, but for guys like Magnus and Hikaru, it doesn't quite matter, but they spend their time really effectively later on, I feel like, in the games. I mean, 1-0 is the last 20% of a bullet game that's 1+0, and you know this. It's how do you even make good moves with the mouse that fast? Like, how do you do it? Because you're like a top 5 1-0 player in the world.
I mean, I appreciate it. I don't know. I mean, it's just a lot of it is practice. I mean, bullet is a pretty mercurial skill. If you don't play for a couple months, it does start to disappear and atrophy. Not so much, I think, with Blitz. Blitz you can reduce for a while, and you've still got the skills. With bullet, I mean, having that form is really important. And I think there's this idea going around that Magnus is somehow not good or like not fast in all-out scrambles. That's absolutely not true. He's not as fast as like Andy Woodward. but he's still incredibly accurate, especially with increment scrambles. I mean, look at what he's doing here.
Queen d5?
He's playing this
f5?
basically perfectly.
Oh, amazing. And now queen d5, and it defends everything. But there's bishop c4 at the end, and maybe it's... No.
Oh,
what?
That's a free bishop. It's probably mouse slip.
No, it's not a mouse slip. No, he just blundered it, I think. Like, I think he just thought bishop e2, and he takes on d5, and he just totally forgot.
Ugh, now it's an 11-point lead.
Yeah, and I think now officially we can probably call it, but, previous game is... So Andy Woodward, yeah? He's the new kid on the block and a monster in online.
I mean, all of these kids are... Like, I can hang with them when it's, in terms of just the speed of general play, but when it gets down to like a rook and 3 versus rook and 3 time scramble, you might as well resign. There's just nothing you can do.
Wow.
They will pre-move 60 moves and then take all of your pieces when you try to, to make a dirty move. I just don't understand it.
And Faustino as well. You've played him in Bullet and Blitz?
Faustino and Bullet, I played only 1+0. Blitz, he dodges me. In 1+0, he is actually very impressive. And you can tell, because you cannot, 1+0 really reveals talent. And Faustino is super sharp. I will say, I think people need to tone down the articles, like when he beats Magnus in one individual bullet brawl game. Like, you don't need to write an article when he gets out of bed in the morning. But he is really impressive. Like, the talent just shines through very, very quickly.
Yeah, I apologize. I definitely made a video about that. But in my defense, I did not make a video about the recent wins against Hikaru. And it's like a catch-22. At a certain point, I go, I think I'm over-covering Faustino. Then I get comments like, why have you not covered Faustino? And I'm like, well,
right. No, but I get it. I mean, he is impressive, and he is one of the most promising juniors right now. That's a fact. But the journey to the very top is difficult.
If I may, the word junior doesn't even describe it. He's a kid. Junior,
more like toddler.
I mean, yeah, he is 10, right? Like junior is under 20. That's the definition in the chess world, where that's when you can play the junior championships up to 20 years old. He's 10, man. He's so young. It's crazy, and he is very
that's
sharp.
Actually mind blowing. I was 1800 and I was 10. I mean, I played my first World Youth, and he streams. I mean, he streams and live commentates the games, and he's super mature, and the maturity on and off the board. Like on the board, he plays like an adult, right? Positional decisions. It's just crazy. You can't actually believe your own eyes.
Yeah, it's nuts. His rating, and that's a nice idea by Magnus giving up the bishop. But it's this game. If he goes full Hikaru mode, he can bleed a bunch of time off the clock. But we discussed this yesterday, this ethical dilemma. If you bleed time off the clock here for like 10 minutes, are you a terrible person? Oh, there we go. And right on cue, Magnus agrees to a draw, and he is not a terrible person. He just wants to play another game.
That's right. I mean, there's the middle ground between, I think some chess fans have to realize, between like Mother Teresa and, I don't know, the Joker. So it's like,
hey, some people think the Joker is a hero.
That's right. I was trying to avoid mentioning a real life villain because I'm like,
right.
So after what I said earlier, I'm like self-censoring. But yeah,
nobody knows what happened earlier. Come on, we'll just
no. I mean, even I don't know.
I liked the timing. Just as I was very scared when I queued up that statement. Like I was thinking, is Magnus going to burn like 7 minutes off the clock here, up 10 games? But
right, it's like when H3, right? And you're like, he's not going to play H3.
Yes. And no, Magnus just wants to play some chess for the love of the game. He's obviously, I mean, he's won the match. But you still have to play out the clock, and E6 is nice move. I like it, but Bishop D4 is a pawn.
Yeah, actually, I like the way Minh is playing this game. Whoa.
All right, my entire screen just went fuzzy. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
My screen on my end looks like I dove underwater and opened my eyes. You know that feeling?
Yeah, I do.
That's what it looks like right now. So if you can still hear me, great. But
I can hear you just fine. Yeah, I mean, you're
amazing.
Your camera is coming through. I think Magnus's internet paid you a visit.
Yeah, we got the internet bug. I don't know what's happening here, but and
Magnus is winning.
Yeah, for reasons. Yeah, I can see that. For reasons I can't quite explain, the bishops are just totally dominating, and yeah, it's amazing. It really is. It's very cool to see, because I think we get used to him just showing up to Title Tuesdays and playing absurd openings and doing whatever he wants and losing. And when he's locked in, I mean, it's amazing.
Oh, wow. I mean, Minh never really got off the second rank. And It's just so frustrating. You lose game after game. I mean, at some point, it just becomes a chain reaction. Like you just stop believing that you can pull off a single half point. This is what I said in the beginning of the match.
Bishop f5. We have a exchange Slav. Now this looks really boring and symmetrical, but there's cool ways to play it for a win for White. He's not quite doing it, but every opening now there are ideas to make it aggressive and play for a win. Every single opening.
Yeah. And a lot of openings have undergone this transformation where traditionally they were always thought of as ways to kill the game, to play for a draw, like the Exchange Slav London system. Now, not so much. I mean, the Exchange Slav is being played for an advantage because people have realized there's absolutely no advantage elsewhere. Yeah, so why not that?
Exactly. Symmetrical structure, symmetrical pieces, but White has a little bit more space. And now Black C makes a committal decision. Now C5 is weak. Now White is first to strike on the queen side, so maybe knight coming to C4, which is the one thing that Black has, is not that great. B4 is hanging, but I don't think you can take because A B5 is probably quite strong, as well as queen B3 and all sorts of other things. So
if you could furtively reposition the rook on C8, then knight C4 would work. Now Minh is starting to fall apart here. Takes, and wow, Magnus just playing this like it's classical chess. He's playing perfect games in bullet. The knight from C6 can't really move because of queen E8 with a fork. Knight to B7 is threatened. Knight to A6. Everything is collapsing. Again, look at that knight on A8. It's just a pathetic piece. 54 seconds for Carlsen. And it's just a well-oiled machine at this point.
Yeah, he's having fun. I obviously, as the match goes on, you've had these marathon matches where you might win by a big margin, but generally, if you're going to play 2 to 3 hours in the evening in bullet, it's got to be somewhat close, like 2-1 or something. But at a certain point, you realize I don't have it right now, and in this format, you don't have a choice. You just play until the internet dies or until the match is over on the timer.
Yeah, the fact that you're an underdog doesn't make it less painful. It's always painful to lose a match like this as a GM. But there's obviously no shame in losing to Magnus by any score. And anybody who doesn't realize that, I mean, just isn't in touch with chess, because this is the norm for Magnus rather than the exception. He is the GOAT for a reason.
Oh my God.
And he wins another one, just merciless. Knight F8, Knight G6. And this, not only is he winning games, but the speed with which he's winning them is also increasing.
Now F5. He's played every opening. I don't think, has he repeated an opening twice?
That's honestly been one of the keys to his success, I think, because he's harnessing one of his biggest strengths, which is his universal knowledge of various openings. He's kept Minh guessing. And the moment he even felt a whiff that Minh could steer the game into comfortable territory, he completely switched up the opening approach.
Yeah, just incredible. It's very fun too, because you get different structures. He had a Dutch structure earlier, but he played a Stonewall. Now he's playing the Leningrad. Should we rename it the St. Petersburg? Like
St. Petersburg?
Yeah, I mean,
the St. Petersburg airport's airport code is still LED.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, but airport codes are strange. No, like why is Toronto YYZ? Is there some deep reason?
Or LAX, or Los Angeles International?
Yeah, I mean, you get anxiety going to LAX. It's the top 5 worst airport in America. But seriously,
Charlotte wants to have a word with you.
Charlotte has gotten a lot worse. It used to not be bad, but now it used to be New York. We had the title, but our airports are beautiful now. So
Well, people found out Charlotte's not a backwater outpost, and suddenly, and it's a mid-sized airport for a growing city. So yeah, I mean, it is just anxious. Even stepping foot in the airport, you're just filled with anxiety.
Yeah, but it'll get better. As a person who lived their whole life with the 3 worst airports in the country, Newark is horrendous still.
Newark is my least favorite airport. I've never seen a big airport like that. With the food options alone are just shameful.
Yeah, they close at 8 p.m. too. I had an evening flight once and there was no food. So
San Francisco is nice.
Yeah, I haven't been to San Francisco. I said no one ever, by the way, but maybe the airport. But Bishop e6, and we should probably commentate the game and not just talk about airports. Oh, Minh slightly better. Could he be headed for his first win in the bullet?
I'm afraid to say anything. Bishop c6. Yeah, Charles de Gaulle is. I'll be experiencing that fairly soon. Oh, rook f7 and b6. As the blue arrow shows, that pawn sneaks through to b7. It's a protected passer. He's got a shot here.
Is it so bad? The king is coming to c7 if the rook moves. Apparently that was wrong, by the way. You had to wait to do something. I don't know what it was. And yeah, now you can't move. White can't move the rook because the king gets to c7. In fact, black can even probably play d5 in some position later on, or there. That's
later on has arrived.
Maybe. Oh, bishop d5, rook d8, rook e1. Did he miss that? No, that was not the idea. The idea is to go here. Okay, cool.
And king e6 to protect the f5 pawn. This should be holdable for black.
And another part of the toolbox here is knowing when the endgame is a draw. He goes to this endgame down a pawn, but he knows that by cutting off the king now on like the 3rd rank or something, and h4 is probably a draw in many positions as well. This is unwinnable.
A great example of the gap between increment and non-increment chess. You go into an endgame like this with no increment. You know you're going to win. You know that it's going to take your opponent a certain amount of time to defend it, as Magnus holds the draw here. In increment play, you can be pretty confident that unless you make a terrible blunder, you're going to hold this indefinitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in 1-0, you go to that endgame, you give a bunch of meaningless checks, the person flags. That doesn't happen here. So, but it's part of the experience.
A4. I feel like every couple of years they keep coming up with new moves in this position. First it was queen a4, then they go a knight a3, and now there's pawn a4.
Yes, pawn a4. Knight c3 is odd. I mean, it's not odd, but generally you wait for dc so you can play knight a3. But I guess, Magnus loves these positions. And I think recently he's gotten, which is crazy to say, but he's gotten more experience and better at these positions. He's added these kind of pawn gambit lines to his toolbox. Now he's not even down a pawn, but he had some nice wins, for example, against Mamedjarov, where he gave Mamedjarov c4, let him play b5, and then he won.
Oh, apparently there was a trick there. Knight c2 and knight b6. I'm going to show this really quickly.
Yes.
I mean, just again, to give you a sense of the kinds of stuff that Magnus, when he misses stuff, it's at this level of difficulty. Knight c2 and now knight b6. This is actually the key move, because if you play knight takes d4, you give up 2 pieces for rook and you lose. Knight b6 forces the queen away. Black simply picks up the pawn on d4 with a winning position. Okay, they've made 60 moves from that moment on.
And
let me fast forward.
That is an example of something Minh should see. I mean, but down 13 games, you stop seeing stuff. I mean, you
stop looking for stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You stop looking for stuff. Yeah, like you boot up a meaningless bullet game, on the toilet or something. You're looking for knight c2, knight b6. Like, it's just, you still believe you're going to win the game. And here, he's just happy to play for 7 more minutes, and that'll be that.
Yeah. Anything but a wonderful time when you're facing Magnus. Now, the plan here is that once this match ends, we'll do the interview. We have another match today, so the action isn't over. In fact, I would hazard a guess that this Nepo Noterbeck match is going to be just as close, if not closer, than the Arjun Duda match, because these are two players who you hear their names and you're like, they're evenly matched. No question about it. Oh, rook d8.
Rook d8, yeah. And rook
f7.
Rook f7.
Oh,
yeah,
rook d7.
Yep.
But I get your bishop first. Yeah, but I'm Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, and then rook g7, and it's just mate, actually. I mean, after that. And you could lose in the endgame, you can lose now. I am excited to have commentated a Magnus and a Hikaru match, but I almost wish I commentated Dude Arjun because I would not know who wins the match until the last 2 games. And also, Nepo Noderbeck, I think, will be very close. So I look forward to that coverage. And yeah, this has been like the Terminator. I mean, what more can be said?
Oh, is there a perpetual? No, there's no perpetual. The king, it's a classic pattern where the king runs over to e1.
Yes, king runs to safety. There are ladder mates on both sides, but I beat you first. Bishop e7, discovered check on f6, and there it is. And black resigns.
Yeah, between Minh's ladder mate and Magnus's ladder mate, the latter of the ladder mates prevails.
The ladder mate.
And the former ladder mate.
And Minh, yeah, knight h5. This is the good stuff right here. Knight h5 is this is the edgy London. And back to our terms. We should not look up on Urban Dictionary.
Don't worry. I've not even the tab.
We have blacklisted that website in our house. This is like almost lost by force, like knight e5, queen h5 stuff, but Magnus defending it obviously quite nicely. And but this is, again, I mean, Danny, what was the score last year? Magnus, Fabi, didn't Fabi score 2.5?
Yeah, it was. Well, I also, Fabi got blown out by Hikaru, I think. Fabi's had a hard time in the SCC in general. But yeah, Magnus, it was something like 21.5, 2.5, something of that nature, yeah.
Yeah, well, what can you possibly do? I mean, what can you possibly do?
Minh is worse again in London. I mean, Magnus has sacked a pawn. No, he hasn't. I thought he did, but suddenly material has once again equalized.
Bishop c3. I mean, just king b8 even. You don't have to do anything here with black. Just f5, yeah.
No, you asked, is it more that Minh was in bad form, Magnus is in good form? Definitely both, but the more this match continues, the more impressed I am with the form that Magnus has displayed. In the CCT, it was a little bit back and forth. He was unstable. This match has been peak Magnus, really peak Magnus.
Right. We do have to remember the CCT is rapid ultimately. You have 3 times as much time. Or is it 10 minute, not 15?
10 minute, yeah.
But again, all the only thing Magnus needs to motivate him to absolutely dominate is not winning something. He doesn't win something, he shows up next time and goes, oh yeah. Now, granted, he was a big favorite today, right? So he did his job, but the way he's doing it is quite impressive. It really is.
His match against Arjun will be interesting. Arjun will have to step it up because yesterday Arjun had a tough ladder to climb against young Krzysztof Duda. Both players were struggling to find their footing. There were lots of blunders. It was a street brawl, and Arjun is watching this. Hopefully, what's up, Arjun? Knowing that he needs to turn the page and he needs to be his best self and a much better self than he was against Duda. That's for sure. If he wants any chance,
certainly. There were some tactics there, some cross pins and everything, but now Magnus is going to start collecting pawns. It's probably dynamically balanced because Minh has these passed pawns. And Magnus can't relax just yet. And it's very easy to relax in a position like this.
And in a match like this, when, with 3 minutes left, mathematically speaking, 14 points in 3 minutes, that's more than realistic, Levy. I mean, you think about it, 1 game per 5 seconds?
And this is likely a draw. Oh, he won on time. Minh flagged.
No, but already in the final position, White's losing because the Black King is rounding up the pawn.
Excuse me. I think historically, I don't remember their online rapid scores, Magnus and Arjun. Like, I think it's close. Obviously, it's in Magnus's favor, but I think in the online stuff, and Magnus again going to the edge of the board, just like in the last game, hilarious. I think Magnus has a big lead in their online battles.
Yeah, that's a safe statement to make with the most of his opponents. This is probably not going to be the last game. I think we're going to get 2 more games in. But
just one, probably.
Just one. Okay, yeah. With the increment, I agree.
But it could already spin out of control for Arjun very quickly. I mean, if he's down 3-4 games from the 5+1, it's basically hopeless. So he needs to use that segment to keep it close. But like, again, how do you keep it close? Again, what do you tell your guy who you're coaching? What do you do against Magnus? Where are you keeping it close? How are you taking your chances?
Well, the thing is, I think that I don't know what the conditions are for beating him, but I know what they are for losing. And the easiest way to get blown out is not to exploit the very few tactical chances he gives you. Now, even Magnus in his best form, he will give you a few. I mean, queen takes b7. He will give you a few chances, a few blunders. If you don't exploit those, then you've got no chance in the match. That's sort of my theory. That's step one. And if you're in bad form, you're not gonna be able to see those moments. Minh struggled tactically today. He had a few chances, but it just wasn't there for him. He's gonna lose another one.
And 95. I was just about to say we've got it. This will run the clock out, but 95 is just winning material. If knight takes, there was pawn takes. The knight was hanging, the bishop was hanging. This is likely the last game of the match, and it is an absolute demolition job. Magnus Carlsen has not lost a game today organically. I think he's going to play some devious stuff here. Oh, he just plays normal move. Okay. C5, I thought. And yeah, beating Minh by this margin is unbelievable. We have to remember 2 points went to Minh via disconnections. And that's what makes this even crazier. Even if those were reduced to draws, it's 20.5 to 2.5. It's just insane.
It's nuts. I'm running out of adjectives.
Well, the good news for you is you have a match after this, which is a pick'em. I don't know who's even the favorite there, but who is the favorite in that match? Noterbek maybe by like 55%. I have no clue actually.
Yeah, I think Noterbek is the more consistent player to some degree, but also that doesn't mean, if Jan has a good day, that means he can blow out one of these guys. Yeah, Minh is he just wants this thing to end, and it's painful. You feel for him. It's like, yeah, you're playing Magnus. It's a great chance, but all of that is just, all of those are just words. When you're sitting there and you're losing game after game, that's a very painful feeling no matter who you are. But yeah, it's going to be a close one. I really find it hard to imagine that it'll be a blowout in Nepo Noterbek.
What to say? And Rook C5, Rook G5 is still on the way, and maybe Magnus even plays Rook C5 here. I don't think it works. Yeah, he doesn't do that. But by the way, there is something to be said. What happened? Rook C2 or something?
Knight takes it, blunders, Rook on D1. That's going to be the final game. Go ahead, Levy.
No, I was going to say you don't want to lose the final game of a match ever, even if you're up this much. And, Minh will probably lose the final game of the match, but he's had a rough day today. What can you say? I mean, it's amazing.
5.5, 1.5 looks close. Look at those totals. 7-1, 7-1. That's going to become 8-1 in the bullet. And feels like the last time Magnus lost a game in this match was like last year.
And he didn't even lose. He didn't lose a single game. He straight up didn't lose a game.
One of the disconnections he was lost, I think, in the final position. But
that's it.
That was crazy. That was just a total and complete destruction. And Magnus Carlsen remains just ironclad in his determination to win the SEC 2 years in a row. But that was just the first match, Levy. It's important that he leaves some gas in the tank because he's got some scary opponents to take on. But he is a scary opponent himself. Look at those totals.
Just absolutely crazy when you consider that his opponent is an online blitz and bullet specialist. He is a demon, 3,000, 3,100 rated, constantly multiple time winner of Title Tuesday. And Magnus wins his first round matchup, setting up a meeting with Indian number 1, Arjun Erigaisi, in the quarterfinals.
Indian number 1, world number 4. It's going to be a really interesting match, and it's going to be interesting how Arjun approaches that match in light of this one. Ultimately, Magnus Carlsen he takes the match. No shame in losing. Minh did his best, but when Magnus is in top form, there's nobody on this planet, truly, who can compete. And we will get a look inside the mind of Magnus Carlsen. We will have him on for an interview before we segue into our second match of today's doubleheader. So stay tuned, because the Speed Chess Championship will return with an interview with Magnus Carlsen on the other side of this break.
Magnus, do you ever regret walking away from the Classical World Championship?
Not ever is hard to say, but I would say that overall, I don't regret it.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Okay. Good. Just checking. Regardless of who wins the candidates tournament coming up, do you think Ding will successfully defend his title?
No.
He's telling the truth.
Okay, controversial. Magnus, do you ever regret making 2900 a public target?
No. It's the truth, but it's a very sensitive question for him.
Okay, touched a nerve. Magnus, do you feel you've peaked as a chess player?
Yes. That's the truth.
Okay. Magnus, do you fear the effects of AI in chess?
No. So it is a lie.
Ooh. Okay. Do you think you could beat Hikaru Nakamura in a chess boxing match?
Yeah. That's a lie.
Wow. Do you think you could beat Levi Rosman and Danny Wrench in a blindfold simul?
I don't care. I don't know what the rest of the question is, but I don't care.
He does care. He's annoyed by that.
Okay. Have you ever played a competitive game while drunk?
Yes. He's telling the truth.
Do you think Chess 960 will ever match the popularity of classical chess?
No. He's telling the truth, but there's more to that.
Okay. But you hope it might?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Me too. Magnus, do you think cheating is a widespread problem in online chess?
Yes. Yes, he's very sure about that.
How about over-the-board chess?
I'm not sure.
He's telling the truth.
Okay. Have you ever cried after a game of chess?
Yes, many times.
He's telling the truth.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, when was the most recent time?
Probably the last time I can remember was the London candidates in 2013.
Yeah, seems like
Truth. Okay, nice.
In recent years, we've had a lot of openings in chess that have become meme openings. So it could be strange, silly openings, and we want you to rank these different openings from brilliant to double question mark. And then number 6, the orangutan or Sokolsky opening.
Brilliant. The orangutan, yeah, it's playable.
Yeah, so I think for 1b4, it's another opening that I've played a lot. Magnus also has played it quite a bit. I think it's completely reasonable, and yeah, it's in the middle. Very, very, very solid opening, and no reason not to play it.
Sodium attack.
One knight a3.
Yeah.
I think that's bad.
Good. I think that's. I can't give too many brilliants, so I'll give it good.
I would say it's not the worst. Maybe it's playable. I'd probably put it in the second to last tier though, which is just bad. I don't think there's much value to the opening itself. It's just fun to move the knight, but doesn't do much else.
And then number 8, I believe, is an opening invented by Anna Crumling, which is called the Cow.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I think as far as the cow opening goes, it's an opening that I would put probably in the second tier of good. I think much like the hippo, it's something that you can play and get to a very high level with it. At a certain point, of course, it's not particularly good if your opponents know what they're doing, but I also played it recently in a Blitz match online, and I did well against the GM, so I think it's probably in the good tier, second tier.
I'm tempted to put it in double question mark, but I think it just barely makes it into bad.
Yep, those are the words of Magnus about the cow.
And then we have a favorite, the Norwegian rat.
Yeah, I really like that opening, but unfortunately I think it's also bad.
Yeah, I think that's in the middle. I don't think it's horrible, don't necessarily think it's great. Somewhere in the middle, I would say. So I'll put it in playable.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
We're back with the reigning VChess Championship champion, Magnus Carlsen, who went on a wire-to-wire rampage, defeating Minh Lee by 17 points, 20.5, 3.5, to make his way to a quarterfinals matchup against Arjun Erigaisi. Magnus, congratulations on the win. Can you start by sharing your overall impressions of the match? What stands behind your dominant performance?
Yeah, I think getting off to a good start was important. Obviously, in the first game, he clearly came prepared in the opening, and I didn't have the best position. And once that game turned and I got going, I felt really good. Didn't feel like he was putting any pressure with the white pieces. Like, I know that he likes those kind of London setups, but he wasn't really getting them either. After that, obviously, like, my internet died, which I've been in this room for a week, and that hadn't happened once before, so that was a bit unfortunate. But yeah, I think apart from that, I don't think he played badly. Of course, like, there's going to be a game here and there with tilt, but I think most of all, I just had a really good day today, and then, very few people are going to have a realistic chance.
Magnus, you have played a lot of the top 10 and top 20 players at this point in the world, probably hundreds of times, maybe, I don't know, close to 1,000 if we count some of the online games. Do you like playing guys like Minh Lee, who you've played, I would imagine, never over the board and maybe just 100 times online? Is it refreshing to prepare for a new opponent?
I mean, it's very interesting to play men in individual games and in bullet without increment. It's like a fair fight. He's really good, but in a match like this, it's about getting through, because, like, unless something very unusual happens, like, in terms of a sporting contest, it's not going to be that interesting, but still fun to play.
Magnus, before we let you go, we have 2 brief chat questions. First from Fisher Random Chess. Do you want Chess 960 Speed Chess Championship? And where do you rank sort of 960 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of your enthusiasm level?
I've spoken about this subject before. I think for speed chess, sort of normal variation of chess that we've been playing for so many years works really well. I think 960 is more suited for longer formats where, because you really need the time to think and delve into what is essentially new positions. In every single game. So while that would be interesting, I think the way it is now to play Vachier-Lagrave with longer time controls and then normal chess and faster is the way it should be.
You've got Arjun Erigaisi coming up in the quarterfinals. You've played all the Indian prodigies in classical, rapid, and blitz. How does he stack up against Prague, against Gukesh in terms of styles?
Arjun is always an interesting opponent because he plays such uncompromising chess, and I think last year as well he had a very, very close match with Jan Nepomniachtchi, and I thought at some point I was going to face him then as well. I don't think he has the consistency to stick with me in a longer match, but in certain games I'm certainly going to feel the heat because he really brings it.
Finally, Magnus, Noterbeck versus Nepo coming up right now. Any predictions for this interesting matchup?
Yeah, this is probably the best matchup of the first round. Or I guess you have Alireza versus Grishuk as well, right? Or
and
somebody versus. Yeah, I mean there are a lot of good matchups, but this is one I'm really looking forward to. I remember a few years ago, Noterbeck in the first round, he really gave Wesley a go. So I think one thing we can know for sure is that Jan is going to have a lot of frustrating moments. Because Noterbeck is so slippery. I don't know, to be honest. I think it's very open, but one thing I would suggest to people everywhere around the world is tune in, because it's going to be fun.
Magnus, congratulations on a dominant win. Best of luck against Arjun, and thank you for joining us. Good luck in the next round.
Thanks.
All right, matches in the books. Levy, it's just the first match of the doubleheader, but Magnus, just to say he took care of business, that would be kind of disingenuous. He took care of business for the next 6 matches.
Yeah, he also gave a proper shout out to the one that's upcoming. I mean, I'm going to get off of here and I'm going to go eat my burrito and I'm going to watch you and Canty, because that is probably the most exciting matchup of the first round. I mean, Duda and Arjun already tried to put on quite a show for us, but this one could be overtime thriller, so I'm really looking forward to it. But hey, Magnus and Hikaru took care of business in round number 1, and I can't wait for the 2024 Speed Chess Championship to heat up.
Well, it'll be heating up momentarily. I am Levy Rosman. It's been a pleasure, as always, to commentate these last 2 matches with you. I will release you to eat your lunch and take some rest. James Canty will be joining me for the second match of today's doubleheader. But for now, we're going to get everything set up. Levy, thanks again. Have a good weekend, and we'll be back with the second match together with James Canty in just a few minutes.
See you, Danya.